Peace and blessings, family. This is your brother Asar and Hotep with the Martin Delaney Center for Egyptology. Today is May the 16th, 2022, and it is another open forum. That means you can ask any question, and I will try my best to answer your questions. It can be essentially about any, relevant topic consistent with the themes, of the Mbongi. And with that said, we'll return in just a moment. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And if I could just get this thumbnail removed, welcome to the Mbongi. And as stated previously, it is an open forum. So, with that, you know that you can ask whatever questions is on your mind or, have a comment or statement. You can type it in the chat or you can use the link. Matter of fact, let me put the link in the chat if you want to come on the program. And of course, during our open forums, you do not need to show your face, but you do need to have a working microphone. And so I just pinned the link at the top of the YouTube chat. Now, those of us who are viewing from Facebook, uh, you should see, well, at least on the Asar and Hotep page, the link in the chat. There's no way to pin it, I do not think. And I'm not streaming from Twitter today, so it's just going to be Facebook fam and YouTube fam. And so, as always, I'd like to give a shout out to those who have made themselves known in the chat. And so, peace and blessings to Emmanuel Adama, Eni Herrick Kalfani, Ankoma Dejed, Brother Teti Ursama Rasa Neferu, Brother Chavez is in the building, Anointed Sadat Amin Ra, Sister Tamika. As always, glad to have you all in the building. And based on Sister Tamika's suggestion, I would, suggest that everyone that is right. Make sure that you hit the likes. And if you are new to the program, you can subscribe and make sure you hit the bell so that you get all the notices of when we enter these internet streets and start with all our shenanigans. And yes, I was on the other program, and Sister Tamika, you said that you wanted to smoke. Well, there is the link. You can join the panel conversation. And so, before we get into what we are getting into, I just want to make some announcements. And so, first and foremost, next week, starting next week on Sunday, is it? Yeah, so Sunday, starting Sunday, May the 22nd to May the 26th, I have deemed it the Cleveland All Stars Week. And I'm going to be interviewing 4 individuals who out of the Cleveland, Ohio area, who is making some big moves and is moving and shaking in the local area, and who's going and a step beyond uh, the local Cleveland area, and is making their mark across the world and the nation. And so we will start off with our good brother Kevin MC Chill Hurd is in the building on Sunday the 22nd. It's going to be at 2 p.m. And then on Tuesday at 1 p.m., I believe, we have our good brother Vince Robertson, who is an artist, a pianist, and a talk show host. I was actually on his radio program uh, not too long ago in on my way to Detroit for the Power and Unity conference that was, happened that weekend. So uh, he will be on our show, and we will get to know, more about him. And uh, ending the week is going to be Sister LaDosha Wright. You may have seen her in the chat, but she is a very dynamic woman who owns a hair salon out there, but has written a couple of books. I know one children's book and one, I can't say adult book, but another book on hair, and it's not like a regular book on hair. And it is a very dynamic book, and we're going to talk about that. And she is, I don't know if she's finished with a documentary, but she is also doing a documentary or has done a documentary. And so we're going to talk about the documentary as well. And we're going to have one more person, but I'll just have to figure out the time for, for him to come on. And it's Mr. Tony F. Sias, if I'm saying that correctly, of the Karamu Theater. And, he's the president and CEO of that. Another arts and theater place. He has a very interesting story. And so, if y'all know about MC Chill Hurd, he is one of the the, the first national hip hop artists to come out of Cleveland, Ohio in the '80s, and he's an award-winning journalist and screenwriter. And so, when we talk to him on Sunday, we will get all the deep history. And so, it's some big Ohio players, pun intended, that we will get into. And then we will have with us as well. I'm going to have to break up the Cleveland, Ohio string for a moment as we go to South Africa. And we're just finalizing the date, but it will be next week. So y'all pay attention to the advertisements, and this is one of the reasons why you should subscribe. So you get the notice when we have these important interviews. But brother Ankh Kim Sama is a medical naturalist, scientist, a consciousness metaphysics facilitator, an ancient Egyptian and African spiritual science teacher, and also deals with Tantra, again, out of South Africa. So he's going to be live from South Africa, and we're going to have our discussion here on the Mbongi. So make sure that you are, in fact, subscribed so that you can get the he does martial arts as well. I don't know if I put that. I guess I didn't. Yeah, but he's doing some big things in South Africa. So he's a good person to know. And so I think that is it in terms of my announcements. And so uh, I see in the chat. And thank you to Anointed Sadat Amun Ra for your donation. It is greatly appreciated. And I see Tamika, doesn't want the smoke, as she said in the other chat room, on another channel. But it's all good. We got nothing but love for her here. And so, peace and greetings to Amar Berry. Thank you for joining the conversation. And I think that is it in terms of the chat. So, what is on your mind, uh, each and every one of you? This is, again, it's an open forum. So you can talk about anything. We can talk about a past show. If you had any questions from the last show, you can ask them here. If you're confused about the general conversation, you can ask here. And so you can ask in the chat, or you can click the live link, which it should be pinned to the top, but I will put it in the chat one more again in my best African American vernacular English to join panel. And there we go. So it was supposed to be a private smoke. All right. Well, I'll hit you up later, Ms. Mika. And so let me scroll here. Let me check the other Facebook page because their chats do not come in on the back end for some reason. In terms, I guess it's a private page. I guess it has to be a public page in order to get the live chat comments. Alrighty, there we go. And here we go. So, the latest conversation, which is not really the latest conversation because we keep going over this conversation, is the on the meaning of Kemet, right? And matter of fact, let me open a Word document real quick and let me go to something because I want to show people something. Like, y'all, give y'all a little preview of the book. And so the book that I'm talking about is the upcoming text, Race and Identity in Ancient Egypt, Volume 1, Towards the Meaning of Kemet. And we are going to, it should be chapter 1, or at least the introduction, if I'm not correct. Let's go introduction, right? So I want y'all to understand that, I will be answering everyone in the scholastic community in regards to this issue here. So I know our good brother Jonathan had a show today where he was examining Sandro Capocici's 2 blog posts on the meaning of Kemet, and I just want y'all to know and understand that I've already written a rebuttal to his arguments in the introduction when I'm doing my literature review. And I'm very familiar with Dr. Capocici, as me and him have, gone back and forth on the Kemet issue in private as well. And I think this was just a little bit after he wrote this. But much of his same point, some that he didn't enter into the blog post, I'm a be or I have addressed already. And so, uh, he wrote 2 blog posts, and I've already written a response to both of them. So trust and be assured that I am always on my game when it comes to the debates on the meaning of Kemet. And so, and I keep telling folks, it's not much that you can introduce me to on this particular argument. So, I won't be addressing too much of anybody, on the net, because I've already written this stuff. And so y'all just have to wait and read everything in print, because the topic itself is very detailed, and a lot of information can get lost when trying to piece together information from various video topic discussions. And that seems to be the case always, and why this particular issue seems to be unresolved, because people do not want to either read text or study or pick up the skill sets to be able to do their own research and or verify already written conversations on the subject. So that is something that we, you know, we this is the reason why we write. So there's well, the hope is that there's no confusion, but you can't make people understand. You can't make people comprehend. So it is what it is. Peace and blessings. I am not Pablo. It's been a minute since I've seen you in the chat, and so welcome and thank you for coming. Again, this is an open forum. If anybody has any questions about anything, this is the opportunity to ask. Or is there something that you want to discuss, even if it's not necessarily related to any of the recent conversations that we've had here? So peace and blessings to Donnie Williams, who just made himself known in the chat. And make sure again that you like the video and share. And so for those of you who are just joining us, if you want to enter on the panel, the StreamYard link is in the chat. So it's going to be for the Asarum Hotep Facebook page as well as the YouTube chat. If you're on the Harold Johnson page, then you're not going to be able to see the link, but I can put it here anyway. So here is the link to join the program. Boom. And now it is on the HJ page. So I see someone has come in, and his name is Syncretism Slayer, Mr. Sean P. What is good?
Hold up, Asal.
Peace, peace.
I got a couple of questions.
All righty, go ahead.
All right, so the first question is an easy question, right? Have you read in any Egyptian text where the king is referred to as the Black King based off of the word Kim, and the word Kemet would refer to the Black people from a syncretic perspective?
Well, I don't know what a syncretic perspective is. He never defines what that means in his actual article.
Yeah, I found it. I found where he was getting it from. It's so he's using syncretism, but it's from Oxford, and the source says that there's two different types of two basic types to be distinguished in the ancient world, and it's internal and contact syncretism. And then he's relying on internal syncretism is typical of ancient Egyptian and Vedic religion as much as the result of popular piety as a temple or theology. So basically, each god appears in a variety of forms and functions. Forms, names, and epithets diversify and intermingle with boundless energy. Gods, often in triads, coexist or cohabitate within one another remaining separate at a level of occult. That's it. That's all it says.
So in essence, that it is, because I've used a similar type of phrase, not syncretism, but what is the phrase that I use? Darn it, how can I forget it that fast? It's just in my head. It what I call spiritual resonance. And that is no, that's something different, because this is when what I call spiritual resonance is what like, say for example, that there is and see, what people don't know, and I guess this ties into, and I've already mentioned this in my text, that the reason why you have a black uh, bull, for example, that is sacred, is because the color black is associated with water in many ancient and African societies. And you know, the concept of spiritual resonance is that in the mind of the ancient person, in order for us to do what the spirits do, we have to somehow vibrate on that level, right? And so it's almost like, your radio antenna, your radio antenna, you know, vibrates at a certain frequency, 97.9, for example. And because it is in harmony with that resonance, you're able to catch the information that is being sent on that particular channel, right? And so what in the ancient minds, what they would do is they would associate themselves or do rituals with things that mirror uh, certain characteristics or aspects of a spirit that is responsible for a certain uh, job in the world. So, for example, when we want rain, we know that rain comes from black clouds,
Right.
right? So, what we do is we do rituals with um, with animals that are black to bring forth rain. So, black cows, black sheep, um, black whatever, right? Black stones, and the like. And so there's all these different kinds of rituals. But if, like, let's say there's just too much rain, well, it doesn't rain when the clouds are white. So we have white clouds that is the symbol, or we appeal to the power behind the white clouds. So we sacrifice, and we do rituals with white sheep. It's almost like for those who are Ifa practitioners, right, and are children of Obatala. Well, there's a confusion in the language in the word Obatala, because there's a word Allah that means white, and there's a word Kala that means a cloth. It's a kind of cloth that they have. So many people interpret the name Obatala to mean, king of the white cloth. And that's why you will see many of the practitioners who are children of Omo Obatala, in all white. And they do a whole bunch of rituals all white because they're trying to be in resonance with the spirit of, the power of Obatala. And so this is why you have these, a lot of these rituals, even in ancient Egypt. It's all part of, what goes on in that region, in the Nile Valley region, regardless. And so, Osiris, uh, being the Lord of the water, being the Lord of the river and underground water system, because ancient Egyptians believed that the Nile River came from underground,
Yep.
and came up. So what they would do is they would go to those ancient rituals. They would sacrifice a black bull, to appeal to Osiris to bring forth the water, from the underworld. right?
Yeah.
And so that's why there's a connection between the Apis bull
And with
and
Seer.
Osiris
Mm-hmm.
and the like. So, but all at the end of the day, all of it has to deal with water and the river. In other regions where there's rain, it would actually be connected with rain. But for the ancient Egyptians, because it didn't rain in Egypt, at least often, it was appeal to the power, the spirit behind the flooding of the Nile River, which is Osiris.
All right. So my next question would be, I got another one,
Go
two
ahead.
more, but
Oh, I didn't
the next
answer the
one. Have
first
you
one.
ever? Yeah, you did.
No, because you said the king. But
Oh
my
yeah, the
answer is
king. Yeah,
no.
yeah, you answered part of it. Yeah, but go ahead, go ahead. Yeah, the king and the king. People, the people being, being seen as what the king would be seen as, like when, for instance, like the black realm. Let's go to Unis, right? Because that's in there. So if you refer to Unis and in there, they call them the black realm or whatever the case may be. Are people, the just the modern Egyptians, have they ever saw themselves in that same anthropomorphic light?
Not to my knowledge.
Right, I can't find that anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, my other one is so yeah, you answered everything. So the other one is, what is this assertion about Diop supposedly showing his work, his linguistic work in chapter 3 of the text from yesterday? Someone said you was avoiding that.
No, I wasn't. Because Diop never shows. Like he dedicated a whole chapter to the question, which is chapter 5, which would have been the full um his opportunity, because he mentions Kim equals black in many different places around the text. I showed a few of them
Mm-hmm.
earlier in the discussion, but he doesn't, and what I mean by he doesn't show his work is that one, you're trying to argue that it does not mean black land. You meaning Dr. Uh, Shekant Joe.
Mm-hmm.
And you're proposing something. You're proposing a new hypothesis. But what Diop failed to do was falsify the first hypothesis. So what he has to do is demonstrate first and foremost that the root is in fact Kim, meaning black, and not one of the other homonyms. And there's nowhere in that work where he does that work. And
Yeah.
then he doesn't try to uh how can I explain this? Because you're going to see a lot of Kims in his work in the chapters that I showed. So starting from page 388
Mm-hmm.
to 342, I believe, is where you see the K correspondences uh, in his work trying to establish the sound and meaning correspondences, right? But the only Kims that he is using are the ones where it's clear that the word Kim is in fact the word black, and so he only compares these Kims, the one for cattle, the one for the pupil of the eye, the very word Kim itself, black, and then he just compares it to one word in the Wolof language, which is Kim, which but means to burn the
Mm-hmm.
bottom of something. And sometimes I think some people refer it to charcoal, but the problem is that Diop, what he does it. You can tell that he does not examine any primary text. What he does is he just goes to the dictionary, the Wörterbush dictionary, and just
Mm-hmm.
takes what's the definition in there, and doesn't go through a process of verifying that these are in fact true. And he bases his analysis strictly on the dictionary entry.
Right.
And it's problematic since you got all those other, because you have all those other homographs in
Mm-hmm.
in the language. He doesn't deal with shield. He doesn't deal with the fort. He doesn't deal with the dorsal fin. He doesn't deal with the word Kim that deals with food. He doesn't deal with any of this stuff, right? There's a word for it: to perform, profit, beauty. He doesn't deal with the word Kim complete in there.
Right.
He only deals with, I think, two. One dealing with the end in terms of the word for limit, that he's comparing for limit, and and the word that he is matching in will off there is not of the same phonetic sequence as like the one that he's claiming is the cognate for Kemet. And then of course anyone that's dealing with black. And that's not how you do it. You have to falsify each and every other hypothesis. And that the only thing that remains is the one that has stood up to scrutiny. And he does none of that in the text.
Right.
And
Right.
this is what's problematic. So I made sure that when I made my argument, that's exactly what I did.
Okay. Gotcha. No, it makes sense because I've been having my head in a bunch of different books today. About 8 hours of research, and I'm just doing my due diligence because I might want to prepare myself for the onslaught of slander again.
Oh, it comes with the territory.
Yeah. So I'm not phased by it. I understand, like, when you critique some people, then slander is the best way to kind of deflect from, not having people see what you're talking about. So,
Exactly.
then this thing about commit to you, right?
Hmm.
Um, people are trying to have an or mount an argument regarding commit to you, and reviewing it is just another assertion. I think this argument is assertion. It's not built on something that they claimed in the article to be would take scientific evidence to refute. It's built on a belief. Um, and I wouldn't even say a hypothesis. I would just say just a flat out guess because you're under the impression that some kind of way internal syncretism is drawing the equivalent between how the king is viewed and revered and the people must see themselves the same way. Then they wouldn't even need a king. Everybody would be the black ram.
Exactly. But you got to remember that, again, if you're dealing with any kind of like black sheep, black ram, black bull, stuff like that, remember traditional. A king is a rainmaker. That was his first job in African society. He is responsible for bringing rain to the community because
Right.
that is the center and the essence of the communities in the village and the nation's prosperity. They're rainmakers.
Hmm. And they
So
also saw him as the go between God and them.
exactly, because
Yeah.
he's the living ancestor,
Hmm.
and so yeah, he's the go between, the voice, of unless he's the founder of the line,
Hmm.
he is, any living king is in fact a uh, is just a representative of the founder of that line. So when and the people that came before, so it's really the spirit, the ancestors, that I should say, the non-living ancestors who are the real rulers. But the living ancestor, the king, is simply the mouthpiece, the channel, the vehicle from which the orders are to come.
Gotcha. Well,
And
you see, your boy Pan is asking you a question. He said that you said the other day that he guessed. I don't think that he understand. I don't think he understands what you actually meant by what you said. But
yeah, yeah, he guessed, and I meant it just as that, he guessed. um, because he did not do the work. And it, like people don't like what I'll do, and I don't know how much time you have to read it, but I'm going to send you a text on etymology and what is all involved in etymology. And when you read the text,
Mm-hmm.
then you'll be able to better understand why I say he didn't do the work. He
I'm gonna
did
tell
some
you what.
go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna tell you. Also, I had a quick question because I was reading something today. It's only a 300-page book, and I got about like 70 pages to go. I stuck my head in it like 6 in the morning. It's called the Syntax Morphology Interface. It's a study of syncretism.
Hmm.
I feel like I was going too far. Like, in the first chapter, the Bible, like, nah, this dude ain't trying to go in this direction, but I'm just trying to corner the idea or the thought process behind the title of the article, and then what's being asserted, because that's all I'm getting out of it is the assertions, and now it's a slow walk.
Yeah. See, this is something, and I don't know if I had a chance to really emphasize this on yesterday or the other day when I had the conversation about Diop, is that you know Diop mentioned in the quote that I have of him in terms of course, not believing anything that he says and developing a means to verify, his arguments. But besides that, we also skip over the part where he says creating scientific research teams. You got to keep in mind that Diop was a one man multidisciplinary researcher. And while that seems to be something to be applauded, by many people in terms of being a kind of like a superhero, you're actually at a disadvantage. This is one of the reasons why, he was so happy to come across someone like Dr. Theophilo Benga, who had a specialization in something that he didn't necessarily have to focus on when they were going to the 1974 Cairo Symposium. And keep in mind at the time before before Obenga comes along, essentially Diop is by himself trying to gather all this information from all these other different disciplines. And so he didn't have the time to master linguistics and to do the necessary work, the etymological work, um, to get at the heart of the evolution and meaning of the word Kemet, for example. So this is what I mean. He's doing stuff in passing, which is why his analysis is only really 3 pages out of the 4 that's dedicated to that topic in his 1977 text. There's no full analysis. There's no falsifying of other hypotheses. There's not even really any mention of the other homographs in the language. There's no use of other languages that was involved to do the comparison. He didn't even compare the morphology in the word in terms of the suffix t. So if you're going to find a cognate, you have to find a cognate in terms of, that's why I put that list up in terms of etymology. Etymology, you have to deal with phonology, you have to deal with morphology, and syntax and semantics, right? Or semantics and pragmatics, right? So that's the linguistic aspect of it. Then you have the philological aspect, you have the historical aspect, and what else am I missing? The 6. I forgot the third one. But there's 6 areas that you have to go through in order to do etymological work. And Diop just did not have the time and or resources to do all of that. So I don't blame him. Like I don't look down on him. I'm looking at the larger task. that he was charged with. And it's the
Gotcha.
same thing. It's the same thing with Obinga. Obinga doesn't do any etymological work. He does broad linguistic comparison. You know, and so when it comes to etymological work, you can't go to Obinga for that. You know, it takes time to do etymological work on one or two words. You know, and with Obinga trying to gather information from all over the continent, this is why I love and respect Mboli's work, because he just stuck to six languages at first, and then he added another seven later. But just by focusing on six languages, it is wide enough for a good sample size, but it's small enough where you can learn more about each language. And because he was able to do that, and he spent 10 years doing it, this is why he was able to answer certain questions and reveal certain things that Obinga or Oscar Perfuma or what's the name could not do, Diop. And so this is why it's important to have research teams. So you have one person who specializes in something that's their expertise, and they focus on that aspect of the larger research project. And when you're able to do, matter of fact, Chancellor Williams said the same thing. Remember, Chancellor Williams went around Africa doing primary research for 16, 17 years. And he said that he had to do that because he was the only one who was interested in doing such a thing. But he wasted so much time because he was the only one, and he recommended that you put together research teams, which is why when you read Takad Kilimanjaro's and them work, they have books on research teams.
Yeah,
How to form them. You know, that's what we need. We don't need like individual warrior scholars. Just he-men of scholarship. And we trying to master genetics, linguistics, archaeology,
right.
quantum physics, and all of that. That's not how you do it. But
I agree.
hold on, I see we have two other
Yeah, I'm gonna
people
shut
who
up
have
and bow
joined
out.
the chat. So I want to welcome Ankoma the Jed and our good brother Wujawa. Peace and blessings, and welcome to the Mbongi.
Yeah, man. Give thanks. Blessings, blessings.
Indeed.
Well, I've been casually following the discussion around the definition of the toponym Kemet, right? And basically, I haven't gotten chance to review all of the arguments that have been put forward and whatnot, but I've I've deduced that your definition of Kemet is a well-watered land,
Mm-hmm.
basically, right? And I would say conventional. So I would call your definition the novel definition, and then the conventional definition as meaning a black land.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to know, like, how successful you have been in basically persuading other linguists about your arguments, and if it have been accepted amongst, as you would say, the peers. Then
Yeah, there are several linguists who, for example, have come to a similar conclusion as I, even before I. And one of them, for example, is Dr. Oscar Pafun, who is a linguist and Egyptologist out of Cameroon. And, he came to this conclusion way back in 1993, the same year that Obinga put out his book. And how he defined it, though, is simply that Kemet refers to a type of land. And there's variations across Africa, meaning farm or farmland or just country, right? And he did another analysis, I think in 2000 and another one in 2007. And when he examined the hieroglyphs, the earliest hieroglyphs, you know, it further confirmed his 1993 analysis. However, he he disagrees with Diop on the meaning of the place name Kemet, with the exception of the variant that you see in the Calhoun papyrus, which has the determinative of the seated man and the seated woman. And so for that, he actually argues that it means the black people. And so when it comes to the Kemet with the 049 glyph, with the N23 glyph, with the N36 glyph, those versions, he is saying it's related to a type of land. But the variant that comes with the seated man and the seated woman, that refers to kind of like a black nation, right? So he's still in alignment with Diop when it comes to that variant. Then you have, of course, Bowie, who in 2010 came to the conclusion that Kemet refers to a land with a river running through it, right? And then there's Dr. Mubabinge Balolo, who talks about, you know, Kim, like in his language, Chiluba, Chicama, dealing with a kind of a muddy or damp ground. And he's in matter of fact, I have a video of him from when we invited him to Houston at the University of Houston to come speak when he came to Dallas to visit. So at the time, he has a daughter, I think his only child, who graduated from, it may have been Howard, but in DC. She was getting her doctorate in like economics or something like that, or something along those lines. But he has family from the Democratic Republic of Congo who lives in Dallas. And so, you know, him and his family drove from Dallas to Houston, and we hosted a discussion with him. So you can see that it's on my channel of Dr. Bilolo, and you'll see that he argues against trying to make everything black the way that, you know, many of the scholars have. Because when you look at his language, there's many different variations. If you were just to look at the consonants, it would make it seem like all of these words are the same. But you know, he's arguing that, you know, Chiluba is especially its essential vocabulary and morphology is really close to Middle Egyptian. And so when we look into even his language, you see all these different types of Kims, and they all match with what you see in ancient Egyptian. And then it tells us that this root is not having to deal with blackness. And so for him, it has to deal with this damp, moist type of ground. And then you have, for example, Dr. Kipkowicz Sambu, you know, who's of the collagen people. And, you know, he has done his PhD dissertation on the oral tradition of the collagen originating in ancient Egypt. And so he got his, you know, PhD in Egyptology in South Africa. And, you know, he argues that, you know, this word Kemet has nothing to do with blackness, but just a country based on, you know, his language and the like. And so there's been many African scholars who have already gone against Diop on this question. And so when I present my information, they're not surprised. It only strengthens their arguments, you know. But of course, you just have those who are in disagreement. For example, like Sandra Chichi that we mentioned, Sandra Capo Chichi that we mentioned earlier. You know, me and him have been going back and forth for a while, you know, but this has been in private, you know, in terms of the details of this. And, you know, and they're, you know, and I have them scrambling because all you have to do is ask anyone, show me the text where this linguist or this Egyptologist falsified and eliminated the possibility of Kemet deriving from any of the other homographs in the language. It doesn't exist. No one has done that work. And so this is why you see this kind of mad dash, this kind of emotional. We gotta put something out there because they just haven't done the work. You still there?
Yeah, man, I hear listening.
And so let me see here.
Let me just take a moment and say peace to the panel, peace to Sar, peace to I didn't catch the name on the screen. Disappeared.
I guess yeah, it does that when you highlight a text.
Uncle Jed, peace to you, brother.
Yeah, man, peace. Ujawu.
Yeah, I'm just chiming in, and I caught the tail end of the question Sean was asking before he left the panel, and and everything. And I'm looking at the chat now, and so you made a comment earlier that I heard. You said that you are basically, dealing with the question in the space of scholarship, real scholarship, and I would underscore that's where it needs to stay, because the consequence of it not being there is what we see for the past 2 weeks in terms of recent back and forth stuff. But it's been a long time. Same behavior, same arguments, same violations of logical fallacies, and it's just really, really bad. And so I think it should remain in that arena of scholarship where things are written, things are well articulated, things are well demonstrated, evidence is presented in a logical and orderly fashion, and not where you have to guess which person's platform to watch first, and spend 2 hours sharing the screen, combing through dictionaries and things like that. So I just wanted to underscore that, because even on this level of the conversation, a lot of people that have approached me, whether it's in the chats or inboxing or whatever, they haven't even read any text, not even our text, but any text on the subject. None. And I keep reminding people that when you do that, it's borderline disrespectful, because when they come and ask a question, you have to sit there and teach them in order to even show them that their very question may be ill-formed. Like you can't even get past the question itself without teaching someone that the question doesn't even make sense. Sometimes even when it does, they won't understand the information that you have to give to lay a foundation for them to understand the question, the answer that's given. And so that's why I say I'm just saying, underscoring, bolding, italicize, all of the above what you said in terms of it being in the scholarly space, and I think that's where it should remain. And I think people who are serious will, at the very, very least, get the text. As far as the text, what we did as far as the contribution on the meaning, on the debate on the meaning of the place name Kemet. And that's why I challenged Brother Sheffrin. I challenged Sheffrin to at least assure me that he one, has the text and that he read it. And so today he posted a picture of him holding up the book, and I said, very good, so he definitely satisfied my question of that. But I told him I'm still skeptical about him reading it, because he posted 2 pictures. one of him holding it, which shows that he has it, which is great. But then the next picture, he shows one highlighted page, which is the conclusion. And what I do know about this social community that people don't read, they'll go, and you see them do it live. They'll pull up something and then scroll straight to the conclusion and don't read the whole text. And
I
so I
saw
told him,
part of y'all
okay,
discussion earlier, and he's asking questions that were answered in the introduction.
yeah, exactly. And I told him that too. I said that's what makes me believe that he didn't read it. You know, he proved that he has it, which is great. I told him that, but I
But at
said
the
I don't
same
think he.
time, I'm sorry, continue.
No. That was what I'm saying, but I don't think he read it. And then obviously I'm not there to prove he didn't read it, but it's clear by his questions that he didn't read it, or he didn't read it to understand for sure, because some of his questions he kind of rapid fire last live show and even in the group, they're right there. I even gave him page numbers in my responses to him today. Gave him page numbers on the T, ending and or suffix, and portmanteau morphs, and so on and so forth. So
Yeah, and then there's the issue, as I've said before in my How to Critique the Critique series, is that
mhm,
it's not enough simply to be able to read the arguments. You have to be competent in the subject in order to fully understand the arguments and to be able to go in, unless, the arguments require like a large hadron collider, that you just can't build, on your block easily. Um,
right,
for you to be able to do the work yourself and to see, whose arguments are valid. And so a lot of people are entering this conversation in debate mode who aren't competent in the subject matter. So no matter how you explain something to them, it doesn't it will not matter. So for example, like I saw someone in the chat, like you can tell, who's been listening to Netanyahu, because they like to repeat, stuff that he repeats. But Netanyahu doesn't know linguistics. So for example, in Aluja Volume 2, when I'm making my argument against Dr. Wesley Muhammad, right? I made sure that I put certain quotations and citations, in that text that would help to answer even the Kemet question, so that you get it all in one book, right? And one of the things is that when you're trying to examine or study the etymology of a word, for example, the strongest variant of the word is the oldest attested. You don't start from the new one, the latest one, and then try to make a judgment based on the latest variant or version. You always go to the oldest. That's a linguistic rule. But they don't know that, and they keep saying like, why didn't you deal with Coptic? I did deal with Coptic. One, they don't
Coptic
read text.
even Coptic even lost the T. It's not even
Ex-
Kemet anymore in Coptic.
exactly, and again, when you go through those six, you know, areas of etymology, one of them is morphology. You have
Yeah.
to be able to compare every single morph in the word to other forms. But then, if you're doing an internal analysis and when you're doing external analyses, this is why we have to deal with Kemet and not Kemet, right? But it's
Mhm.
Coptic also lost the determinatives. That is a very key and important part of the conversation. And you have this issue in linguistics, which of course all the non-linguists aren't going to know about, and until you start really diving into this profession, is that you always have to be careful of a phenomenon that we call diglossia, right? This is when you have a community that has a long written history and they start borrowing words from earlier times into the present time, right? Which themselves could be words borrowed from other people. And, you know, for an untrained person, that will look like this word, has been continued in the language. When that's not the case, it could be a borrowing. Like you can borrow from yourself, which is why you always go to the oldest attested forms
That happens in
when you're making
English,
exactly.
and people don't understand that. That's how they have a skip. They have like what they call a semantic gap
Hmm.
in these words too. It'll take on a totally new figurative pathway when it's borrowed from its earlier diachronic existence.
And so, it's not enough to just know about, process and how to do something. You also have to know about, models, theory, in the field and certain other underlying issues that you're just supposed to keep in the back of your mind when you're doing this stuff. And if you don't know the basics, if you haven't gone through these types of training, you'll skip all of that thinking that you're making progress in some ways. And that's not the case.
Well, what I find is at a very, very basic level of these conversations, I realized, I realized a long time ago, but it's just staring, it's just bubbling to the top, is that a lot of people don't know what a translation actually is, and what a word actually is when they talk about what something means. Like when people ask that question, what does blank mean? And I don't think people really know what they're really asking or how to discern that, and it takes, like, we take a lot of stuff for granted. Like, well, black is black. We know what black means, but but it's not as straight. None of them no words are straightforward like that. It gets into semantic pragmatics, and the list that you gave, really, the what was it, 6 or 5 things
Yeah,
that you gave, and nobody has
there's
time
six.
to.
I named five. Let me,
Okay,
because I'm getting old,
well,
so I know. Uh,
but nobody, like, in our everyday conversations and communications with each other, we don't have to deal with those 6 things, right?
yeah,
And so we take it for granted, but when we have to focus on something, that's when those 6 things are paramount. But because we don't deal with it day to day, a lot of people don't even know about those 6 things that are necessary to answer, these critical questions. And and that's fine. Ignorance is cool. But when somebody is trying to point these things out to people, the pushback is amazing to me. It's to me, it's unwarranted, but people are have a strong rebuttal to something they don't even know about. And like you the way you just said it, was people come into these conversations already on 10 in debate mode. And I'm like,
exactly.
where is that coming from? Like, you don't even know enough to know that you're wrong.
Exactly. And
But yeah,
but
that right
yeah,
there.
here's the citation that I talked about. And so, he says, because in this section he's talking about the earliest forms of etymology. And of course, they always start with the Greeks, but we're dealing with Socrates, and so he gives Socrates' approach to etymology, and then now he's going into the modern etymology, which nowadays one tries to argue systematically in all strata, in phonology, in morphology, and in semantics, pragmatics, and also extra linguistically in philology and culture, and also one also takes into account historical developments. If one wants to be a productive and successful expert in etymology, one has to thoroughly study all the areas mentioned. So you got to go through all of these things in order to do etymological work. And that's exactly what I was saying, that Diop, because he cast his net very wide, he didn't have time and the resources to hone in on such a project. And so his argument is really a hypothesis that had yet to be proved. And so he did no philological analysis. He mentioned the Calhoun papyrus, but he never examined it. He never cited what it was, because what Diop was doing was just taking the dictionary entries and going from there. So you don't see in Diop's work, line by line transliterations and translations and analysis of text. That's not what he did.
Yeah.
He didn't. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I'm just I was gonna say yeah, because I think even in the chat when I first popped in, the brother in the chat is trying to say, well, first of all, people are speaking as if we need some kind of extra Kryptonian superpower to have the audacity to critique someone that they revere for whatever reason. And so Diop, in people's minds, as brilliant as Diop was, in their minds, how dare we say anything about Diop that they perceive as being negative? So when you say Diop didn't do the work, it's like a gasp of air. How dare you? That's what's coming out in the conversations, and they don't know what to look for. Like if you say Diop didn't do the work, then the next response, the kickback is like, how can Diop possibly not do the work, but yet he's at a 1974, big time symposium? And so people do this false equivalence, like being at a symposium to argue something automatically means you did the work on X. And that's not the case. That's a logical fallacy of a couple of them, violation of a couple of them, and so it's just really, really bad. And that's why I say this conversation is not made for the space of the social community, the YouTubian streets and stuff like that. It's just not, because we'll spend valuable time and energy talking to a doorknob as opposed to advancing the information to those people who actually want to know and are trying to connect the dots and things like that. So, I'm just gonna keep saying that till the wheels fall off.
It's I can't have this conversation with individuals who haven't put in the work to understand the conversation. And I'm trying to find something here.
Yeah, like the comment that James Pan-African Design said. He says Coptic was used to decode the Medu Netter. Now it's something wrong with Coptic too. Now see, that's what I'm saying. I'm not sure what people's educational background is, and even as I just said that just now, I'm gonna come off sounding condescending and insulting if I say that. But I'm being very honest that I don't know people's educational background. And because I don't know people's educational background, I have to judge people's aptitude and competency based on what they say, what they type, how they carry themselves, and so on. And so for James to say that Coptic was used to decode Medu-Neter, now is something wrong with Coptic, when nobody said that on this
Right.
show.
They
Nobody
just
said that.
make up arguments and then
They
try to
just
argue with us about arguments that they've made up themselves in their mind and their head.
right. Nobody said something was wrong with Coptic. We specifically, Asar specifically said Coptic lost the determinatives. There are no determinatives in the Coptic script. And what I said is that on the word Kemet itself, it doesn't have the T. It's Kemi. There's no T there. So Coptic is very limited and handicapped. You cannot use Coptic to address this question. Period. Point blank. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, just real quick. So they're going to be really mad at because they already getting mad. I have Appendix E. So in the upcoming book, Appendix E is going to be Kemet and the Garden of Eden.
Oh boy, man.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Garfield's about to get on your head with that one, boy. Nah, he probably gonna use it to battle some Hebrew Israelites. He gonna ask you for that part.
This is my way back into the Hebrew Israelite community.
You about to make some associations in full circle. Asar gonna pop up as a Hebrew Israelite again. the ISPKMT clan. No, all I was saying was that people make up arguments, and I just see it as a sign of immaturity, and I could tolerate it to an extent, but it's a pattern, and it just gets old, and but what I was gonna say though, on the argument of Coptic being used to decipher or decode Medu-Neter, I can tell that statement made by James, he doesn't understand the decipherment process to the extent of how Coptic was used, because I can equally say that Greek was used to decipher Medu-Neter. Now what? Because the Rosetta Stone itself has 3 scripts but 2 languages on it. And how they were able to, they knew the Greek, and so you can compare, and they knew that names existed in the Greek. They could read the names in the Greek, and they corresponded them to the Sesh Medu-Neter or hieroglyphic script within the Shenu or the cartouche. That was one of the easiest things that was observed and recognized. Coptic was not involved. Coptic is not on the Rosetta Stone. And so,
but there were even still, there were more languages and more stuff done in the whole decipherment process,
right?
That people don't know about, because they don't know how the language was fully deciphered. The initial clues was because of the Coptic and stuff, but it was other languages involved in that process. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Right. No. Yeah. That speaks to my point, that people just say anything. I'm convinced it's the say anything club, and outside of being funny and entertaining from time to time, it's just old and tired, And right now you're showing on your screen internal correspondences between like Idebwi, or for example, and Kim, the Kim correspondences. And early
go ahead.
No, and earlier Sheffrin asked me about the word riparian, and I reminded him that what people tend to do is we'll say a word that they never heard of, before, and then they'll look at, I can't even guarantee, but they may look it up, riparian, and find out what it means, because that's the first time they heard about it. And then they'll go to the Egyptian dictionary and just do a search. And when they don't find it, then they'll come back to me or us, any one of us, and say, see, it doesn't mean that. because they can't find it in the dictionary. Like the word retard doesn't exist in Egyptian dictionary, one like that. But what retarded means, which is to slow down, to stagnate or whatever, that concept exists in the language under a totally different form. You're not going to find that translated that way, but you can find the word that has the same semantic conceptualization. And so people don't understand those even those basic things when they're dealing with this, which is fine. But when they argue and try to take a stance and argue with you all day, every day, that's when I have a problem.
And thanks to Sister LaDosha Wright for her donation. And I don't think you were in already, but or you weren't in earlier, but I've already let people know that you will be on the show on next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So make sure y'all check that out. So thank you for your support, as always. I'm sorry, continue.
No, I mean, that's all I'm saying. I'm saying, so people come to your channel, they're listening to you. When I go live, if I'm talking about this, they'll listen, and then they'll go run and tell that, because the brother James in the chat, if he's still there, I hope he is, so he can hear me say this, is that he'll behave a certain way and say what he say here, but then go to other channels and then say some other stuff and totally butcher what was said, like he's doing here live. Like he actually heard one of us say, or some phantom ghost say, that Coptic is no good or whatever, when we never said it. But instead of just saying it here, he'll run to another channel and say, yeah, Asar and Wujalo said Coptic is trash and it's no good or whatever, and then they'll have a 10-minute conversation on something that Asar and Wujalo never said.
But that's why I say, cite me, play the video clip, quit making up stuff. But for those who uh, are asking, where did he get the riparian land from? Uh, you can go into the Vigus dictionary and just type in Edib, right, and you will see riverbank, riparian land, shore of flood, etc. And riparian land ain't even like the main definition that we even have for Kemet. It's like just one in the spectrum. My primary definition for Kemet is a land with an abundance of water and vegetation. Simple. And then we go into the details of that. Water with a river running through it, a riparian land, a watering hole, watering place for cattle and the like, et cetera, et cetera. But even still, it's not. Hold on, just 1 second. It's not random, because as I demonstrated in the 2019 work, the 2020 work, and which would be repeated again in the 2022 work, that internally the word Kemet. See, there's many Kemets in the language, which people don't understand. There's many cognates and internal variations of the word Kemet. And this is why there's a difference between a philologist. That's why when we go to this slide here, when he says, modern etymology is nowadays one tries to argue systematically in all strata, in phonology, in morphology, semantics, and pragmatics, and also extra linguistically. Extra linguistically is non-linguistic, beyond the linguistics. And philology is not linguistics. Philology is simply the interpretation and the reading of text. So just because you can read text doesn't mean you can do linguistics. You don't do phonology and morphology and semantics and pragmatics. And this is when me and Dr. Beatty was having our emails back and forth on this. He couldn't understand what I was saying. He thought because he could read Meta Nature really well, that this qualifies him to speak on linguistic matters. And this is the same thing that a lot of people are not understanding here. And why, like, you can't take, for example, Smash Rockwell seriously. Because he is an enthusiast philologist. And so he's not going to understand when we start talking about these mathematical principles in linguistics in these areas of analysis. So he all over the place trying to jump between fields. He's trying to be an expert in things he don't want to read about and study and engage in, which take years. But because of that, they don't understand that. They don't know that the Deb root is cognate with the Kemet root. And that the Deb comes from Jeb. Like, these are just dialectical variations from the same root. And you can see with these different prefixes to the main DB root, you get these different variations: field, mellow, highlands, arable land, rented arable land, area, foundations, precincts, farmer, stockman, worker, because you have the agent suffix here, right? So, and then these variations here: bank, shoreland, two river banks. And I show in one of these renditions, let me see if it's in here, when I talk about the, is it in, let me see here, because, this is why you got to go into African languages and show how the word for banks and rivers edges is also the same word from land and country. This may not be the chapter. See, I got so many chapters, I don't know what is in what. But I'll find it and I'll show it again. But, and we do this by going through and doing the work. So you got to know certain things about the historical developments. So the DB comes from the D with the underline, which, many pronounce kind of as a J type sound. But this is a palatalized form of the word, of the phoneme G. And so this is really a dialectical variation of Geb, like the earth and all that. And so, you have these different variations. So this is what I mean by, when you're doing the work, you're looking at internal correspondences and external correspondences. Diop doesn't do that. He doesn't go through the homographs of Kim. Like, where's his examination of Kim to pay? Or Ekim, shield protection? Or Kimi, food? Or Kemet, grain or plant? Why isn't Kemet the land of grain? Or food, the land of food? Why don't they argue that? How did you get from, how did you choose black as the from this variation of the root? Why isn't the complaining land the land of lament? Why isn't the land of destruction? Right? Like, there's a process of elimination that is done when you're doing scientific work. And so you have all these other different variations here. And then when you go into other, you see the cognate, the dump, cultivated field, demba, bed of sweet potatoes, cultivated field, et cetera, et cetera. And then y'all will get in and see how this all relates to Egon, and Edon, the garden of Edon. So here's my argument here. They're gonna try to, pause it real quick, be like, see, and without reading any of this, they'll just pause the video. You see that correspondence that he went through right there? It wasn't peer reviewed. That that table wasn't peer reviewed, and you know that page never went there wasn't peer reviewed. Did y'all know the word Kemet is cognate with the word Unk? You will find out in uh, the upcoming text. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just want to say this real quick. The brother James and the brother Smashers in the chat, but the brother James specifically, he asked a question, or he's not really asking a question. It's one of those statement type questions. Why can't you show us Riparian in association with the Kemet glyph? Do that? Question mark.
Well, the first thing is we never made the argument that you could find the word Riparian in relation to Kim. Kim is just one of riparian land. It's just one of the definitions that we have given to the word Kim, based on the internal correspondences with a word that is defined as riparian land. It's that simple. If you don't comprehend it, wish you well.
Well, I was even going to be more simpler than that. That right there is confirmation, excellence, that the brother never read the text. Yep. Because what you just said is clearly put in the text, and this is exactly what I mean. So to use James as the teaching moment, an example is that we have people that will be in argument mode, debate mode, like our good brother James, who are making assertions but putting question marks after the assertions and things, and making statements but just putting a question mark after them, but haven't even done the basic stuff about the work, like at least read the text and then ask questions.
Yeah,
at least do that, because now it's starting. It's like being, it's funny and entertaining, but it's disrespectful. And see, and then if I say what I'm saying or whatever, then I sound like, a condescending, bougie, anal person or whatever. And it just is what it is. People have to understand the same questions over and over and over again. So I see Smash in the building, and it doesn't matter. See if Smash watching or not, because people, you got that run tell at people, because I don't catch Smash live, because his time zone is 3 hours difference, and I don't have the times that he's live. I try to catch him. I catch a couple of them in the past, but my timing is out of sync. So I'll get scrub through them after the fact, and the chat still shows on there. And I see James, I see other people in the chat typing stuff like that. So I know for a fact of what people be saying in the chat, and I know who's who in the chat and whatnot.
I mentioned earlier that Brother Smash did a show talking about Dr. Sandro Capocici's 2 blog posts on Kemet, and just showing that I already addressed that, and we already beat him up live in some other message board forums, on his arguments, and so they already been addressed, both blog posts. So we and just showing that I'm addressing all, and I've addressed all Kemet claims, and because that's just part of the process of doing your literature. And so, any and everybody's arguments, 9 times out of 10, I'm very familiar with them. And as I stated earlier, me and Capocici been going back and forth on this in private for a while now. And so y'all get to see, but this is how you do it. You put it in writing. You force people to organize their thoughts and put their rep on the line by putting it in print.
Yeah, that's what I said when I first came into this live stream. I caught you saying that you know, you have to address it, or you were saying you were going to stick to addressing it in a scholarly space, and so I'm in full agreement
Yeah,
with
because
that.
I'm tired of repeating myself in these social media streets, and then these people don't even read text, and then they only discover text when trying to argue against my text or my position. They never read the text. They try to argue against my position. So what they start doing is a lot of Google searching and see this, and then they'll reach out to some other people who hate the position. And won't you try this source? Yeah, this person says this. And then it's a whole bunch of appeal to authority, and none of them can verify or falsify any of the claims in any of those texts. And
Yeah.
it just gets to a point. So it's like, no, like the book and that I'm speaking of that's coming out in September. You know, it is for the scholars. And I'm not going to argue that it's going to be necessarily an easy read, but if you do get the text, you read it, you will see what a full analysis in terms of etymology is. And then anyone who is going to try to make an argument has to put in as much work as I did in regards to this subject. And this is just remember this is volume one. There's three planned volumes, and so the second one is going to be an edited text where we'll have contributions from other scholars, in the text. And then volume number three is just going to be primary source facsimiles of important texts in Egyptian and Greek, as well as
All right.
English text. So we serious over here. Got to have vision. I ain't did this one in a long time.
Brother Asa, I wanted
Go
to
ahead.
ask you, what are the main implications of the new definition you're putting forward, like in understanding ancient Egyptian realities?
If I understand your question correctly, you're asking me what are the implications of the redefining of the word Kemet? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, first and foremost, as I mentioned the other day, it is just it's just a good mystery to solve. Any researcher is researching to solve a mystery. So, because this is an academic mystery that has been debated for half a century at least. Uh, it's just good research. But two, it it in okay, it does not confirm the the hypothesis of Diop in terms of that Kemet means black people. However, it does confirm his grander argument in terms of the relationship between ancient Egypt and the rest of Africa, because this place name is not isolated, it's not unique to ancient Egypt. It's found all over Africa. And you just have to understand uh, how to make the systematic sound meaning correspondences between languages and to find the cognates in the language. And then you will see that there's many in the form of Kim and Kemet. Like there's a Kemet in Nigeria. There's Chikam and Kama all up in uh, the Democratic Republic of Congo and um, Cameroon, for example. And then you got other variants of the word. For example, like the Ganda and Kanda variations. So when people like talking about Wakanda, Wakanda is cognate with Kemet. Uganda or Buganda is cognate with Kemet, right? Then you have the variations like Conga and Congo. So when you go to the Democratic Republic of Congo, Congo is Kemet. And so what it does is besides, it helps us to better understand the mindset and the labeling techniques, the naming techniques of early African people. It also demonstrates the deeper connections culturally and linguistically of African people. Because not only do we have all these other correspondences in these other areas and disciplines, even when we name the spaces in which we're looking for, we name it Kemet, quote unquote, Kemet, right? Just in the dialectical variations that you will find throughout the related languages. And so it puts you in the mindset of what's important to early man. See, we think that, uh, like, you go to a grocery store nowadays to get food in general. You may actually have a garden or something like that. But for the most part, everyone goes to a grocery store, right? We hop in cars and we go places. We build houses. Um, we settle in houses. There's running water that comes through a faucet and a shower. You live in a totally different, social environment and physical environment than your ancestors, who were essentially, either nomadic pastoralists or were hunter gatherers, right? And these groups of people were constantly roaming, looking for water sources, and so they named the places that had major water sources. And so it has nothing to do, like, they weren't concerned with people's phenotypes and labeling and things like that. They didn't have a race consciousness like we do today. They didn't go through that history. They were concerned about living spaces. And they named the places that were good to live, places that were dangerous, places that had no water and food, places that just had high mountains, places that just had like it could be, certain predators live there, like it could be the lions something, and people think it's a totem. No, it's just lions live there. You need to watch out. That's the kind of concern that people have in those days. I'll share Ujaru's screen. You can go ahead and take it.
Yeah, this is from our presentation 3 years ago. And I always like to give dates because people need that chronology, and they need to understand sometimes the frustration in, at least in my voice, of how long these conversations have been going and how long we've been repeating these things. And so I'm just going to read this. This is a book, a article from the African Journal of History and Culture. And so this excerpt is saying toponyms fulfill the task of identifying localities, thereby distinguishing them from one another. More so, they serve as cartographic labels that can be used for orientation, navigation, recreation, and reference points. A place name, which is the translation of toponym, a place name imparts a certain character on a place. Thus, on a place, not people. Thus, place names can also provide a glimpse of the lifestyle led by the people. For instance, geographical names can suggest that a people were settlers rather than ferocious raiders. In other words, place names could be used to judge the way of life associated with the people, whether they're sedentary or nomadic. I think that's what you were just saying, Asar. One potent means by which they effectively encoded and communicated cartographic and geographic information was by the use of toponyms, names of places and other geographical features. Thus, in vintage African societies, place names were not just chosen arbitrarily, they were carefully chosen to convey specific and useful meanings to the people. And once I'm trying to switch over, yeah, here we go. To continue, indigenous African place names have an enormous treasure of geographical information and knowledge inherent in them. In a typical traditional African society, place names are used to succinctly describe geographical phenomena. Rodin's account of the use of place names to identify various geographical conditions and features in Uganda typifies what is obtainable, obtainable in a classic African society. As observed by Rodin, quote, a very prominent group of Ugandan place names are those which describe or imply the physical characteristics of an area, relief, climate, soils, hydrology, flora, and fauna all feature in names throughout the country. Often, the description is in terms of the suitability of an area for human activity, the fertility of the soil, the presence of water, reliability of rainfall, suitability for a particular crop, a river or a swamp which endangers life, the occurrence of a tree or grass species of value for house building, tool making and handicrafts, and the presence of clay for pottery are all frequent examples. Other names suggest the type of land use, the use, describing a prominent crop, the presence of grazing land, and so on. And the end quote. So that right there is the standard and norm of indigenous cultures around the world. But this is specifically talking about Africa, and that quote is talking about Uganda, even to be more precise. But this is in general across the continent. And toponyms by default only refer to places and never to people. So even at the start of this argument, when people try to associate the place name Kemet with a description of people, say it means the land of black people or the land of the blacks, talking about the people, that by itself is an ignorance of what a toponym actually is and what it only functions as. It only functions as a referent to a place.
Excuse me, Wujau.
Yes.
Is that like what you're saying there is that a toponym only describes characteristics of a place and never describes the people of a place. But
exactly.
Modern toponyms don't hold to that law. You know,
Not necessarily.
England.
You can't say never.
Modern toponyms like France or England or whatever, it come like that. Don't hold to that standard. You know what I mean? I don't think
but see,
like you can think of,
character.
because you can think of, for example, Burkina Faso. You know, the land of the upright people. It's describing the character of the people or the perceived character of the people by the people who name it. But that's clear in the language. And what we're saying is that it's not an issue that is impossible. That is, it's not impossible that something could be named. Because like when you go to Houston, Texas, Houston is named after a person. There's no Houston people, but there's a Houston person. And so it's possible for names to be uh, given to describe the characteristics of a people or not. But what we're saying here is that the norm, the tradition. Remember that in the 6 areas of etymology, you have history and culture. And so when you're going through the history and the culture of the people, what is the dominating factor in terms of their naming practices? And what we're showing here in the journal article is that what is the dominant in Africa is that they're naming the locations based on the characteristics of the place and not the phenotypes of the people. And I have yet to find any place where there's that the indigenous people name the area based on the phenotype, any kind of phenotype of the people. You know, in a case like Burkina Faso, they're talking about the characteristics, the divine characteristics of a people. But they don't, like when you go to South Africa, there's no land of the big butt people, right? When you go to China, they don't say the slanted eye people. You go to Scotland, it's not the red haired people. They don't name themselves after any kind of physical characteristics. They name the space after either just kind of like a famous people you know, or uh, or characteristics of the landscape itself.
Yeah,
When I
I,
listening to all that,
I
I only thinking about most of these European nations. They named after the people, now, you know, right
well,
in
I
the
just
modern.
that's why I have this on the screen because
I'll be right
we
back.
had to, I did a whole class on this, and so I'm very careful of what I try to be careful of what I say in terms of being precise and surgical. So toponyms are place names, but then there's different types of toponyms. And so in general, we just say toponyms, but there are different types. You have hydronymic toponyms, you have oronymic toponyms, you have eponymic toponyms. Eponymic toponyms is what Asar described. And so there's different type of toponyms. And so we have to keep that in mind, and we have to be aware of that in these conversations. If people don't have awareness of it, then they're not going to understand, and they definitely shouldn't be arguing. So when it comes to what you were referring to, Ankoma, is what's called exonymic toponyms, where not the people themselves will name it. Like, for example, China. China, is that a good example? Where China is an exonymic name, toponym, meaning that it's exo, meaning outward, meaning the outside of the people named it. Endonymic, meaning self-named or internally named. So when you name yourself, or you and your people, you name yourselves, that's an endonymic naming convention. If another group of people name you, then that's an exonymic naming convention. And so we have that. We definitely do have that today. Where the most popular name for a location or even a people may be exonymic, but it's popular and we use it. Like Japan, I don't think Japanese. No, I'll give you a better example. I'll give you a perfect example. You familiar with Greece, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we say Greece all day, every day. Greek and Greece. The people who are there, we say Greeks, and the place is Greece. But many people don't know this, but the Greeks didn't call it that. They call it Hellas, and themselves Hellenes. It was the Romans that called Hellas Greek, or Graecia, or how you pronounce it in Latin. But they're the ones that named it that, and that name stuck. So we call Greece Greece. You know what I'm saying? And so, but they didn't call it that. And so again, yes, we do have that today. It exists, but we have to understand what these things and what they all mean. A demonym, an example of a demonym that I have on the screen would be Mexico, which is a place, which is a toponym, and then Mexican or Mexicans, the people. That's a demonym, which is derived from a toponym. So you use the place name, and then you add some morphological feature in your language that will denote that these people belong to that place. And in our case, we say Mexican, American, Canadian, Russian, African, Ghanaian, and so on and so forth. And so we have different suffixes for that to account for that phenomenon. But you take a toponym and you adjust it, and it becomes a demonym. So people have to understand these things about the features of languages as a whole, and how these things are done in particular languages. And so Kemet, as a place name, a toponym, is referring to a place and not the people. The people refer to themselves as Remich, which was the name for all of humanity to them. But whenever it came time for them to distinguish themselves from others, they would hold Remich for themselves and then have a different naming convention for all others. And That's the facts on the ground.
Keep in mind, like, for example, Oklahoma. The Okla in Oklahoma means people. And like the Ma is like my, it's like, I forgot what the Okla, the whole part is. But Ma is like, my or whatnot. But it's Oklahoma is a good name to remember or look up, regarding, the it just being named the people or the place after the people in that sense.
Yeah. So, and I believe you brought this forward, Asar, when you were talking about the suffixal ending ham, like Nottingham, Birmingham, and those things referring to place and country. Did we lose him?
No,
think
man,
he's still there.
right there.
Oh, you didn't hear what I said?
Yeah, listening.
No, I'm talking about Asar. I was I was hoping he could chime in on that. I was trying to give him an alley-oop.
With the suffix ham or Birmingham and thing.
Yeah,
Right.
and what I argue is that T suffix really is a suffix for land. And what happened in the language, which happens in a lot of languages, is that when there becomes a homonym in the language, the two forms merge, and the same form, serves multiple purposes.
That's a portmanteau morph. That's what I was telling
Yeah,
Sheffrin about. That's what it's
and
called.
so
Portmanteau
because
morph.
this literally is the word ta, and we know this from comparative studies that this is the word ta. And what happens is when there's two consonants, especially if it's a liquid in a second consonant position that has become a morpheme, because all it is just like what we say, like when you say, you know I'm in Pennsylvania here, so you have a location called Concordville, right? That ville is a whole word for a place, like a kind of form, or if you say something ridge, or we use ham, like say Buckingham, palace. Like these are all words for a type of place. And so what will happen is, for those words that have a second consonant, sometimes because of the nature of where the stress falls, it will fall off and you're only left with the first consonant. And this is exactly what happened here in the word. So you have the T, but now it sounds like the feminine T that exists in the language. And so these concepts merge. It's the same thing with the W suffix of place. There's two main suffixes for place in Egyptian. It's W and T. Now, because now they sound like the masculine and the feminine. Now these concepts have merged. And so when people are talking about there's no land in Kemet, yes there is. That's the suffix T. And you will only be able to understand and discover that if you know how to do internal analysis and reconstructions, and when you do external. And this is why that second, or that third level of etymology includes morphemes, morphology. And that's something that Shekhar Diop, none of them did. Sandro Capocci, Oscar Perfuma, any of the uh, well, none of the European scholars have done a full analysis on the word Kemet, with the exception of Dr. Nibby. She tried to do something, but she didn't do it from a language perspective. From a linguistics perspective. And then, of course, you have the text by Ogden, but he too is not doing a linguistics perspective. It's only a philological perspective, What is the earliest forms? What is the, the determinatives, the position of the determinatives in terms of the direction. Well, for the main, because the Kim is reversed in a few examples.
If I could share this real quick on my screen, just a very short, quick, snappy lesson on portmanteau morphs. Where's my cursor at? I lost. Oh, here we go. So this is a morphemic analysis of this word, segeminef. And segeminef is one word, and it means he heard. Okay, that's what it means. He heard. And I know y'all can't see my cursor. I don't think. Let me just get my little pointer right here. So segeminef is one word, and we would call a single word, but it's made up of different morphs and morphemes. Okay, so the morphemes are described right here in this area here. So the word segem itself is the lexeme here, to hear. Then we have an infix that represents the morpheme. It's the morph, that's the realized morph that represents the underlying morpheme of past tense. Then we have the morph or the graph that you see here, which is a horned viper, Gardner code I9. It's transliterated as an F, as a morph, and it represents 3 morphemes, all in a single glyph. It represents the morpheme of person, which is third. It represents the morpheme expressing gender, which is masculine. And it represents the morpheme, which is the distinction between number, in this case, singular. So this single graph, or transliterated as F, this single glyph here actually represents 3 morphemes. And the definition of portmanteau is the combining of 2 or more morphemes into one morph. And this is exactly what you see. So third person masculine singular is our English word he. The English pronoun he is a third person masculine singular pronoun. And so that's an example. So the quote unquote T, people say feminine T all the time, not knowing that there are underlying more than one morph underlying that realization of the raised bread loaf. And that's what people have to understand. And this is why I keep telling people to go and watch the short videos that explain these things so that we can upgrade the conversation and not have to repeat. And I want to point out that I did a presentation on this 3 years ago. And I'm going to keep pointing out these dates because people act brand new and like, this stuff is new, or that, we haven't gone over these things over and over and over again. So anyway, just hopefully everybody understands that. But that ties into what you were saying, Asar, about the T in Kemet, representing land, a place, but also gender in terms of the syntactic unit used in a sentence, feminine. So hope people understand that.
Indeed. And hold on a second. There was a question on the HJ page from our good brother Alan Flagg. He asked, does not the hoppy come from the high up south? He said something about it coming from underground. I'd like to hear more about this. Yeah, well, we got to make a distinction here. So in real life, because people have explored and went the entire length of the Nile, we know for a fact that the Nile River has its origin in 2 places. One in the high uplands in Ethiopia, the mountains, where I think most of the water comes from, and then there's a major channel that comes in from the Congo. And so we know where that stream and stuff comes from. However, for the Egyptians, they believed that the origin of the Nile River originated from underground somewhere past Aswan. And so that's That's what I'm saying here. And so when they appeal to the power behind the inundation in whatever God form that may be, this is why, for example, Osiris is the lord of the inundation and the waters from the Duop, from the underworld. But they believe this underworld originated in some place past, you know, Aswan, and that it, you know, that the water came out of the ground instead of, you know, the highlands of Ethiopia. So I hope that answers your question. But anything else, Akoma Dejed?
Well, not to seem like if I not believing you, but somehow I think they would have traveled beyond Aswan and realized the river going up further beyond and thing. You know what I mean? Like, I think in that seeming like if they wouldn't be too smart to just think the water just coming up from just underground. You know what I mean? The inundation. What do you think?
It's possible that they discovered at a later time, but once something has been ingrained into the religion and the philosophy of a people, they may not remember the origins of a particular thought or practice, even if, at a later time they discovered that something may have not been the case. So, it's really just no telling, because it's not like they're writing about it and giving us details of the evolution of that observation.
All right, well, give thanks. I was glad to learn some things from all that tonight. Give thanks.
No doubt, no doubt.
And there's attested texts that speak to the beginnings of the Nile, and they likened it to the dwelling place of Khenmu, famously known as Khnum, the deity Khnum as well. And so if you I don't have them off the top of my head to share with you right now, but maybe if I remember, I'll pull up some text that will give you more insight on how they felt about the beginnings of the Nile as it relates to Usir coming from the underworld, the Duat, and as it relates to Khenmu or Khnum as it relates to where he lived. And it wasn't in the two locations that we know in Ethiopia and was it Lake Victoria?
Because both of those origin stories sounding like if they have like a mythological foundation, and like as we know, the ancient Egyptians real people too. So when they say like Hatshepsut, what time is Hatshepsut?
She's 18th dynasty.
Like in terms of
some more year.
Yeah.
I don't know off the top of my head. I could find it for you real quick. Give me like 2 seconds.
No, you could pull it up, but it's no big thing. But I just saying, like they say they have records of Hatshepsut go to the land of Punt and come like geographical expeditions, to different places and things. So
yeah, but keep in mind that she went via boat. Through the Red Sea route.
She went around.
Yeah, so she didn't go down through Sudan.
I know, but just even saying it come like they had the means and the resources to like do geographical surveys far and wide, and you know what I mean.
And keep in mind that keep in mind the time period. We act like the ancient Egyptians were all of one mind and everybody knew the exact same thing throughout their lifetimes. And that may not have been the case. And so the people who, originated, a particular story may have never traveled into Sudan. And they're the creators of it. It just became popular after a while. While another group of people from the land, those who are charged with exploring and expanding territory and or trade, would know these things, and the king may know, but certain people who don't travel wouldn't know. And so we have to keep in mind that everybody was not of the same mind, everybody was not of the same character, everybody didn't know everything the same. And so we just got to keep that in mind when we're having these particular discourses, and when we say the ancient Egyptians, speaking as like a singular voice, because there was no united religion in Kemet. These are regional religions that interacted with each other and borrowed from each other, but you have entirely different stories, different types of relationships. Keep in mind this is different time periods. We're talking over 3,500 years of history in this place.
Yeah, all I was going to say was as well that to travel along the Nile River and split at what we now know as Khartoum in Sudan, and where it splits into the White and Blue Nile, for the Egyptians to make that trek, they are bumping into people who are not themselves, and so it could be hostilities and things that are going on and whatnot, or conflicts, possible conflicts, and so on and so forth. And we see that also attested when, for example, Harkuf, early on in Egyptian history, had to go a different route to the southwest of Egypt to go where he was going, and to come back, he had to be escorted to go back home. And so, like I said, I don't have them ready right now to share with you, but there's different texts that will kind of speak to all those things. You got to look at the journeys and expeditions. They even have maps to quarry places in ancient Egypt that are still surviving today, where they talk about that. Yeah. But
so
that's it.
So I'm stay on. I'm just packing up this other computer. I'm on the phone right now. So it's still an open forum. The link is pinned at the top. So is there anything else you wanted to address, Brother Wujawu?
No, I'm just chilling. Like I said, I agree with the first thing I heard you say when I popped in was the best place to articulate all of this, where people can come to one location, is in writing, because part of the problem that I see happening is that the information is being discussed in a scattered way, and people are really it just boils down to clicking up and who people like.
It's the a click situation. And what people don't know, like I heard someone say, we need to hear linguists and all this. We've already interacted with all of them. The problem is that a lot of y'all are new to the conversation. We've had this discussion with Egyptologists, linguists, archaeologists, anthropologists, any and everybody. Like this is not a new conversation for any of us on this. Well, at least me and Wujawu. And most of your scholars, on that you can even think of on this question, we probably interacted with them and have like the records of our interactions. And so this is why I'm saying, like, I'm not having this discussion no more. I ain't gonna say no more, but I'm not going to continue to have this discussion with people who are coming new to the conversation and doesn't know what has already been discussed and with whom. And so it's just a mute thing. And so I can only have this discussion because this is a high level academic discussion, and many of the arguments and mistakes that y'all are making are stuff that is like very basic and requires, you know, y'all to take courses on some things. And no matter how many times we explain it, y'all don't get it because y'all haven't sat down and focused uh, on the subject matter, you know, outside of an argument for Kemet. Like learn the field just to learn the field. And then once you've mastered that, come back to the conversation, revisit the text. I cite all kinds of text on the meaning of Kemet. Just go through the bibliography. You'll see who's discussed this before, and that's why, you know, in my arguments, I always have a literature review section. Like people don't even go through the literature review, and then try to, you know, they come across an article or something like that, and act like it's some new information or some groundbreaking stuff, and it's already been addressed and debunked if it's in a crazy way.
Yep. And this, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the chat from in here in the StreamYard, and it's very predictable what some of what people are commenting. Like Google Scholar says what you said sounded elitist, and as I said last night, and I said not too long ago tonight, that people don't understand. Like I point out dates for a reason. The very picture I have on my screen right now is from 3 years ago, where I'm explaining the morphemic analysis of the word Kemet. And so I did this 3 years ago. And when I say I did it 3 years ago, I didn't do it 3 years ago and then that was it. I did it 3 years ago just publicly in terms of in this kind of format, but I've been doing it ever since and was doing it before. And so what people don't understand is that this has become repetitive over and over and over again. And then the conversations go back to listserv. Oh, sorry, you showed that from what, 2004? Was that from 2004? So that's 2004. And some people are in the chat asking, well, where can we see these conversations? You showed that. And that's what I mean. That's what I mean. See, there are different YouTube channels, and then different we go live at different times because we don't want to overlap audiences and things like that. And then people don't get to catch all of the shows in their proper chronological order. And then our shows will be long. Some people are not going to sit through the whole show and stuff like that. So it's scattered, it's disorganized, and it's scattered. And then it ends up being people clicking up and favor a certain person, and they're going to check out their show more than others. And then, you know, and so it gets botched down. And so that's why the smartest thing to do, the best thing to do, is to put it in writing in some form or fashion. That's just basic scholarly actions. I mean, you know, and people shouldn't have a problem doing that because most people have blogs. People sign up for free WordPress and create blogs and whatnot and spend hours online. So it's not hard to do. It's not impossible, not hard. So it's nothing elitist about this because none of us have superpowers or whatever case is. It's the point of constantly repeating the same thing over and over again to the same people. I could see if it was brand new people every time. Then you're like, okay, cool. You know, new people coming, being exposed to certain things. That's why you write books. That's why you document something so that you can keep it moving and allow people to catch up by checking out the archives and things. So people got to understand those things. So anyway, just hope people understand.
It's only elitist. See, we if we were elitist, we wouldn't even share this information publicly with you. You know, elitists keep this stuff secret and they only talk amongst themselves. The issue is when people haven't done the necessary work, will spend all of their energy trying to argue with you and haven't done the research themselves. And they're finding straw men and not understanding how in depth historical comparative linguistics is a specialized field of study. And, it is essentially like quantum mechanics in amongst physicists. And people are trying to be quantum physicists without passing algebra first.
Yeah. Smash says teachers teach the same course each year. That's exactly what I said. That is a fact. Teachers teach the same course each year, but and this is exactly what I mean. That is not what we have going on here.
Yeah.
If I said it, if there were teachers teach the same course because they have new students coming in each year. But I guarantee you, I got people in my family who are they're retired now, teachers, and you trust me, if a teacher sees the same student show up in the same class year after year, that teacher is going to be pissed off and going to think something is wrong with that child. They're going to say that child is failing. So yes, teachers teach the same stuff to new students, and you cannot confuse the circus community and what's done on YouTube for don't compare it to a teaching environment, because in a teaching environment, progress is ascertained through checks and balances, through testing. So a teacher will teach, and then the teacher will test the student to see if they gained proficiency in what they taught. Then they can move on to the next lesson, the next lesson, the next lesson. There is a series of progression that is judged and ascertained. That doesn't happen on the YouTube streets. That doesn't happen scattered around, hopping from this platform to that platform and all out of order and in a hodgepodge way. That doesn't happen. So we cannot compare the two. And so when I said what I said, I'm saying the better move, and this is for everybody, the better move, and what true scholarship hinges on, is to consolidate things into one spot, orderly and proficiently enough so people can understand and follow the course of the information so that people can learn and grow. And that way you'll know if you're making progress or not. This is not the way to go. Even online teaching, even virtual classes in school, it's set up like it's in-person school. The teacher teaches, the students get quizzed, they either pass or fail. The teacher is not going to slow down the whole class. If there's a classroom of 50 students and one student is behind, the teacher is not going to hold up the other 49 students for that one student. What the teacher will do is they will do something extra for that one student on their free time, on their own time, and say, hey, catch up. You're going to have to bog down and do some extra homework. I'm going to give you this. You're going to have to do this so you can catch up. Or you're going to have to do a makeup exam or makeup test. They don't halt everybody else in doing that. So we can't compare the two. And all I'm suggesting is that we got to stop trying to bring the scholarly space and lower the bar down to and take it for granted and disrespect it by just thinking everything willy-nilly that could be taught. People trying to teach and don't know how to teach. They don't know the science of pedagogy and andragogy, how to tell the difference between teaching adults and children and what it takes to do those things.
Well, first of all, that comment wasn't peer reviewed. So all of what you just said goes out of the window.
It's not peer reviewed. Exactly. It's not peer reviewed. It's not the consensus. Because I'm the one that's saying it. Yeah, anyway, but hopefully people get it. This is for everybody. Like, nothing I'm saying should bother anybody. People, I mean, I don't see why people don't even agree with that. Like, don't you want everything in one spot. Like listen. Here's a perfect example. Every last one of us in this chat and on this and me and Asar here, we all go to grocery stores. We all go to the department store. We go to a mall, right? A grocery store. Now imagine, I'm just gonna use the grocery store. Imagine if you had to go to multiple stores to get everything you wanted out of a single grocery store. Like if you wanted a can of beans, you got to go 2 miles down the road to get your can of beans. If you wanted some fresh greens, you got to go 5 miles down the road to get your fresh greens. You wanted some fruit, some oranges, you got to go another mile in another direction to a different store. You wanted some whatever, some frozen foods or whatever, you got to go to another spot. Who wants to do that? So the grocery store, or AKA the convenience store, as the old heads will call it, go down to the convenience store. Why they call it a convenience store? Because it's convenient. So it's best to consolidate the arguments, consolidate the evidence, consolidate the claims, consolidate the opposition, if there's any, and so on and so forth. Consolidate that in one spot where everybody can go. That's what libraries were for. Wikipedia. If anybody wants to know the basics of anything, you go to one website, Wikipedia. Most people's first stop is Wikipedia. What is it? It's the online encyclopedia. People start there. They look at the wiki articles. They got multiple articles on multiple subjects. Then you scroll down to the bottom of Wikipedia articles and you find the references and citations and stuff. Then you branch off from there. You go get the actual books that Wiki is quoting and stuff like that. You build up your library, and then you do some further study, blah, 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 blah. But the point I'm making is that things need to be ordered, structured, consolidated, which provides the best means to proceed, and not just random, scattered, anything goes. I'm going to play favoritism. I'm going to do the drama. I'm going to curse each other out. I'm going to overtalk each other, stuff like that, and do the one-up game and all this other silly, goofy stuff that goes on that I see.
I have this comment highlighted here because, we talked about this yesterday. And that is, for a lot of y'all mainly get your information from YouTube. And, you may live in an area where there's not enough like-minded people that you can have these conversations with. So, you join these online communities and you think that the parameters or the diameter of the discourse is limited to what is happening here on YouTube. And so, do not get confused with, those of us who engage with one another on social media and in a chat room, with the vast amount of people who we interact with in real life and who consume our content, whether it be in text, in articles, or on video. And so I belong to a school of researchers in all areas of life. Some of those people I bring on the program to have discussions with you all. And, I've been cited and been consulted in people's PhD dissertations. Like, I'm published in certain works and encyclopedias and things. Like, what I do is beyond YouTube in 100 ways more than one. And just because I don't talk about everything that I do on YouTube, or the people I know who interact with, or how they know me, and what their thoughts and stuff are. Do not get this confused. What you see on YouTube is a very narrow, very limited scope of what goes on. This is why y'all so behind on the Kemet discussion, because y'all think that this is just some YouTube conversation. It's a Facebook conversation. That this hasn't been going on with us and actual other scholars in the field, Egyptologists, linguists, and the like. Y'all are the Johnny come latelys to the conversation, which is why y'all scrambling trying to look for stuff to make arguments and make a YouTube video instead of researching and putting together a dissertation on the subject.
What's surprising me as well right now with that comment that you just had up there is people used to accuse the Amara Squad members of the same thing. Like they'll say, people will say, well, of course, all y'all are going to agree because y'all are a squad and y'all are going to agree with each other. Of course, you're going to do this. Of course, you're going to do that. And many times when that's said, we had to tell people that the members of the Amara Squad didn't agree on many occasions. And everybody on the Amara Squad can attest to what I'm saying. But when we many times when we face forward or when the curtains are drawn up, we will talk about something that we ended up agreeing on. See, people don't understand. Like for example, part of the process with the Amara Squad members is behind the scenes. We will go blow for blow. You got Unc and the real black atheist argument with atheism. You had Ishmael Bey with the Moor argument and Tamaray, meaning land of the Moors. At one point, you had Smash that was arguing different elements about Nubians, and I'm just being general. You had what else? Asar arguing certain points. I'm arguing certain things, and it just depends. Even Sister Naya will come with something, and we either agree. Sometimes we don't agree. We didn't agree with some stuff she said, and she don't agree with some stuff that we said. And then Dr. Ma'at. So we would have these disagreements, but they're very respectful disagreements. Like, because we knew what time it was, but we would go live or have a discussion about something that we already ironed out for the most part. That we start narrowing down some agreements with different things. We can toss this, keep that, toss this, keep that. But then when we discuss it, that's how it is. And so people would be like, oh, of course y'all gonna agree. They don't even know what the process leading up to these things are. And so I say that to say, one, to address that comment, but two, like this topic about Kemet, the place name and stuff like that. Like, people don't know what has transpired for years leading up to the repeatedness of this conversation, but yet they come to the conversation already on 10, trying to defend something that they don't understand, asking things like Coptic, why didn't you use Coptic? Like, dude, do you understand Coptic don't even have the determinatives? Like, do you understand how
they're getting that they're getting that argument from Dr. Mario Beatty. And so if you recall at the one ASCAC conference, I forgot how many years ago it was, but this conference, we weren't in New York. I think we were in DC. No, where were we? Or were we in Philly? I don't remember, but it wasn't in New York. It wasn't Atlanta. It wasn't that one DC. I don't know. I think we were in Philly. Or it may have been Jersey or something like that. It was one of the ASCAC conferences from a number of years ago. And I made in passing the talking point of Mboli of the idea that Coptic is its own language, and that Middle Egyptian and Coptic, that Coptic is not a continuation of Middle Egyptian, that it's a separate language that that is a kind of like a cousin, or that there was some heavily borrowing because they existed in the same space as the Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom uh, language, which fell off, and the other, Coptic took over after, a later period of time. But this was in passing. And so Dr. Mario Beatty tried to make a big issue out of it in the question and answer. And I was telling him, well, in order for me to answer the question, I would have to demonstrate for you and show you in slide form. I have it, but I don't have that time, because that would I would be running into other people's time. So we're at the end of my presentation, which was on something totally different. So this was just mentioned in passing. So the conversation continued from there in an email series of emails going back and forth, which I have the email. And Dr. Mario Beatty, and excuse the loud car noise if you're hearing in the background. Dr. Mario Beatty's sitting here trying to make an argument against the assertion, and never read or even heard of Jean-Claude Mboli. And I'm telling him repeatedly, you need to read the book. Well, I don't need to read the book to know. No. You need to read the book, because he's misinterpreting what is being said, and he's mischaracterizing what is actually the essential argument here. So because he didn't understand and never read Mboli, he doesn't understand linguistics, because he's a philologist, not a linguist. He was trying to argue against Mboli's work and never read the text. And then tried to make the argument that he tried to skip Coptic, that we went around Coptic to address them. And it's like, no one went around. This is why you need to read the book. He does a full analysis on Coptic and uses Coptic all throughout the text in his comparison. So when you hear these parrots in the chat talking about, we didn't address and use Coptic, they're repeating Ned or Neb, first of all, who of course he don't comprehend nothing, because he heard Mario Beatty say it without understanding the debate and the context of the conversation that was being had. So he's one of those individuals who I mentioned, who even at a PhD level has an opinion about work for a field that he's not familiar with, for a text that he never read.
Clyde Winters
right now is arguing on Facebook about the helicopters in the hieroglyphs, that was real. Right now, as we sitting here speaking, Clyde Winters is arguing on Facebook that there was spaceships and helicopters in the hieroglyphs.
Oh, man, you can't make this stuff up. And then people want to know, like, be wondering why we say what we say. It's crazy. But I want to say something about that the conference, the ASCAC conference that people try to refer to. That was not a debate. People are so, they use that word so much. They don't even know what a debate. They wouldn't know what a debate is if it hit them in the face on a bright sunny day. That conference was not a debate. You don't give somebody 10 minutes and call it a debate, and then you take 40 minutes or call it a debate, and you never examine each other's arguments. It's just a presentation of something. It's the presentment of something in a very, very condensed form in lieu of somebody getting your fuller explanation. That's all. That's what that was. And I'm gonna tell people one of the reasons why we wrote a contribution to the debate on the meaning of the place name Kemet was for this reason, was so that people could walk away having something in their hand to examine and not rely on a limited 10-minute, 15-minute presentation where you spend 2 minutes of opening, 2 minutes of closing. So you really only have 10 minutes at most to say what you got to say. Then you off the stage. That's not how you do that. That's not a debate. That's not a debate. And that wasn't a debate. So people got that wrong. And then Dr. Mario Beatty never read the book when he was standing on stage. He couldn't possibly have, because we just put it out for that purpose. And he didn't read anything. He was going off of something completely different. And then his entire presentation. Now we did a review of his entire presentation on our channel. I think it was Seshu channel on either your channel, Sar, I'm Rock Squad at the time, or one of them. I'm gonna dig it up. But we did a review of his presentation. And we broke the whole presentation down. And people are appealing to authority because of Dr. Mario Beatty name dropping him as if that in and of itself means something, or it means something, but they act like it means that he's right, and that automatically makes others wrong. And that's a problem. People do that too much. How are you ever going to challenge anybody if by default the person themselves is always going to be right? That's the opposite of what a debate is. If a person believes that they're right and there's no other possibilities, then there's no need to debate. If a Jehovah's Witness knocks on your door and say, Jesus Christ is the Lord and Savior and die for your sins, and you ask that person, could you be wrong on that? And if they say absolutely not, then there's no debate. You might as well shut the door. There's no need to talk further, because their mind is already made up. And in debating, we're taught never to debate no situations. You never do that. That's the equivalent of in science something that's being unfalsifiable. Like, you're like, all right, get out of here. It's unfalsifiable. Like, that's not science. That belongs over there. And people got to understand that. So let's clear that up. It wasn't a debate. It was a very short presentation to basically whet the palate of people to know that these things are being talked about and where to find more information at and stuff like that. So it wasn't like some debate at all. Dr. Mario Beatty didn't even address anything that was written, and that's really just a short preliminary thing. So I mean, people got to get out of here with this name dropping and mischaracterizing everything. Never going to grow like that.
And we got to keep in mind as well, that this is a secondary reason. Like if it wasn't for the ASCAC discussion, the contributions to the debate on the place name Kemet would have never been written. The main reason why that text was written is because Netterneb and Brother Reggie were behind putting the so-called debate together. And we already had a taste of the character of Netterneb in his so-called judges, that he's the only one who knew who the judges were with our debate. And then just because of Brother Reggie is Brother Reggie, we just knew it was going to be some shady stuff, and that they were going to try to do something with our time, which they actually did. And so
didn't they cut your time?
Yeah, they cut my time, and then Mario Beatty went overtime. And we know that because we're coming into hostile territory, that they're going to make it to where their position is presented last. So that'd be the last thing that is on your mind when you're having a discussion. And so because I knew there was going to be some shadiness with the whole setup, I'm like, because we put the book together in a week, literally in a week.
Yep.
So if you see any mistakes in there, that's why. Because we put it together in a week. We had to compile the notes, because most of that stuff I already had written, because it was coming. That was going to be in the book that's coming out in September, right? And Alluja Volume 2, which was came out a year later. So, we put it together in 1 week to have it ready for the conference. And so that, whatever they did, our position was already in writing for people to see, so they couldn't misconstrue it. So the anticipation was they were going to argue. We anticipated them arguing against a position that we never had, so that you would know what exactly our position is. We put it in writing. And then, of course, we knew it was going to be some shady stuff, because then we find out that there's no question and answer. There was no rebuttal session for the so-called debate. So what they were going to do was just, have us present. And, so Reggie went first, then it was me, and then it ended with Dr. Beatty. And it was supposed to be Ned or Neb and Unc and Sunjetti. No, who was it supposed to be? It was supposed to be, I think it was supposed to be you, but we substituted you for Sunjetti. So they were supposed to be in another room.
I'm gonna say this on record. They lucky I wasn't there. Yeah, I said it. I said it. They lucky I wasn't there.
So
because they not seeing me on Egyptian grammar. Nobody in the chat is seeing me on Egyptian grammar. Yep, I said it straight like that. Nobody's seeing me on Egyptian grammar. Nobody in the chat. Nobody in these YouTube streets either. What?
And that's why once I found out that we weren't doing a question and answer,
that's what people want to hear.
And there was not going to be a rebuttal, I changed my whole presentation. I didn't even talk about Kemet. I talked about methodology and the methodology that is necessary to answer the question on the meaning of the place name Kemet, which is essentially chapter 2, I think, of our text. Right. So I didn't even discuss the argument of Kemet at the debate, because there was no debate. I knew they was shicing us on the information, and my time was cut, and Dr. Mario Beatty went overtime.
Yeah, and he's the president of ASCAC, or chairman, and everything. So obviously he's definitely gonna get the carte blanche, everything, which is cool. It's understood. But the point that that people need to understand, though, is that stop calling it a debate, because he didn't address the arguments. He basically name dropped his Dr. Theophilo Benga, his master teacher, Dr. Theophilo Benga, and things like that. And that see what people have to understand too is that in certain spaces, such as ASCAC meetings, such as NAACP meetings, such as so-and-so meetings, there's a certain vibe and area code about it, zip code about it, where there's certain trigger words and stuff. Like when you walk into a Baptist church, there's certain things that are said that triggers everybody. And everybody's like, amen. That's right. That's right. That's right. Go ahead, brother. That's right. And the same thing happens in these other places. The moment you drop a name, Sheikh Anta Diop. That's right, brother. That's right. Dr. Theophile Bringer. Hallelujah. Praise Jesus. You know, you do certain things because you're gonna appeal to the audience, and that's the type of audience that you're around. We all do it in some form or fashion. We all do it. So that's just a part. That's part of it. But the problem though is people take that as if that is a part of determining accuracy of a claim, or proof of a claim, or the support of a claim. And that could become problematic. You want to present, and you want to invigorate the crowd. You don't want to be boring and this and that. That's fine and dandy. But what people got to separate is that none of that matters when it comes to accuracy of information. You could be the best rebel, you could be the best crowd, move the crowd. You could be the best MC and move a crowd. I mean, got people with chills running down their skin, all over their skin and everything. But you could be 100% wrong in your claim and everything. And because that's a real possibility, we have to then understand that it's really all about superior methodology and the correct methodology that produces the right outcome, the answer, regardless of what the outcome shows. And that's how you do science. Science has this cold feel to it because of that. They don't care about your feelings. They don't care about who you like or dislike. It doesn't. As a matter of fact, the contrast between eyewitness testimony is a perfect example. In the court system, among 12 jurors, eyewitness testimony is highly valued. But in the science laboratory, among astrophysicists, physicists stuff, they could care less about eyewitness testimony, or what you say, or what you think you saw or heard. They call it anecdotal. Even in medicine, that's anecdotal evidence. At best, we'll just consider it. We'll put that over there on the desk. But in these YouTube streets, it's about name dropping. It's about whose elbows you rub and stuff like that. And people just be making up stuff. And that's crazy, So people don't need to get it twisted. So that's the thing, man. So people gotta understand everything has its place and whatnot. So if we're gonna and see, what I would like to see is us attack topics and not each other. Attack an issue and not each other. And when we attack an issue, we should form Voltron and team up to attack the issue and not each other. But see, what I just said, that's not fun. That's not dramatized enough. That's not dramatic enough. That's boring. Nah, Wajau, you're gonna spoil the fun. See, when I talk like that, let's attack issues and not each other. That kind of talk, it's not too popular. Everybody gotta have a one up and click up and do this and do that and whatnot. No, but that's not how scholarship is. You argue the issues and not each other. You don't attack each other. You don't, and you don't take it personal. You never identify. The one thing that was drilled into my head all throughout school is you never superimpose your identity on information, because your information is always going to be critiqued, looked at, scrutinized, praised, and condemned at the same time at that. And because of that, you should never assume it as your identity, because you're going to feel offended. You're going to feel disrespected. You're going to feel like people are attacking you and not your arguments. That's the first thing you learn, especially when debating, real debating, not the stuff you see on these YouTube streets. but debating. You deal with arguments. That way you stay away from the logical foul. You stay away from insults and ad hominems. Both. You don't get caught up in all that stuff. So that's the thing. The meaning of the place name Kemet is, and it's another thing. The meaning of the place name Kemet is an etymological endeavor, a philological endeavor, and all of that in a bag of chips. And so for anybody to say that it's not a linguistic endeavor, or go as far as to say linguistics is not involved in it, and to think that linguistics only deals with how something is spoken, that person is not qualified to have this discussion. They're just not. Now,
Indeed.
what I just said,
No,
and I'm saying, because I don't like the innuendos, I'm speaking about, for instance, the brother Reggie. When we began this conversation with the brother Reggie, it was on the phone. I mean, him jumping into the, chiming into the conversation. I don't know if it's the very first time he chimed in, but in the early stages of the conversation involving him, I remember having a conversation with him on the phone, and I forgot who else was on the phone. I know Unc was on the phone, but I forgot who else was on the phone. And on that phone conversation, Reggie did not know what a toponym was. And so I had to tell him what it was, mention it to him, and then tell him what it was. And on the phone, I had politely had suggested to him for him not to jump into the conversation until he understands what toponyms are. Because we're arguing about a toponym, a place name, Kemet. And so if you try to argue about something you don't understand, whatever, then that's kind of weird to me. So I made that friendly suggestion to him. That's one. And then two, I remember another conversation where the thought of this topic question is not a linguistic approach. Like it doesn't deal with linguistics. And I want y'all to just pay attention to the arguments that are being made. People are not thinking that it involves etymology, semantics, pragmatics, philology, etc., etc. Those are all linguistic issues that we have to approach this question with. And for somebody to not believe that that's so, that too should bar them from participation in the conversation. It just does. You have to use the right tools for the job. You cannot show up at the operating table as a surgeon with a screw gun that's used to hang drywall. Now, a screw gun is valuable to a person who hangs sheetrock and drywall, but not to a surgeon. And so you have to understand the question, the research question, and the necessary tools to solve the question, answer the question, and solve the problem. And so that's what I see out here, is that people don't understand what it takes to even address the question. But we're saying it all the time. I'm telling people, hey, get a basic. I'll be showing links. I'll be saying, listen, get this book on Semantics 101. Get this book on Pragmatics. Get this book on what a word is, signs and signifiers, the signifiers, the form and meaning of words, how translation is performed, the art and science of translation, all that kind of stuff. I'll be suggesting these things to people so they can understand the difference between literal associations versus figurative ones. And so, we should approach it all together. But nah, take 4 or 5 years, people arguing over the same stuff. Anyway,
that was
I was trying to
comment.
Oh, what I was saying.
That was a that you just made.
Yeah, I mean that's cool. I mean, I know people will say that, but I'm really sincere with the things that I be saying, and I try to tell people that will assume that it may sound elitist, bougie, or condescending. That I try to give them context for it, so they don't think that way. But if they do, they do. I mean, that's just
one thing you got to learn about this community, though. It doesn't matter how sincere, how calm you tell somebody. If they in their feelings, they in their feelings. You know, we can pull up right now the conversation that we had with Ned or Neb in the Sesh Meta group concerning the so-called double articulatory sound of the W and its presence or non-presence in the Egyptian language. And how when the sister who's a linguist came into the conversation to try to help Ned or Neb understand, she was very calm, very polite, very almost motherly in her approach to Ned or Neb. And Ned or Neb was still hostile and called her a chump and all this, and she don't know what she's talking about and all this other kind of stuff. And that's one thing you just learn in this community, that there's just some people you can't help. It doesn't matter how you say it, what you say. They're just going to be who they are. And they're not going to listen and not going to learn. They're always going to cry. They're going to be in their feelings. They're going to want to fight. That's just who they are. And we got to get to a point collectively and understand that those people are just going to be those people. And we can't continue to waste time because they accept mediocrity in their life. And they want us to accept mediocrity in our life. And because, you know, misery loves company. And so those people who love mediocrity, let them be. You know, we don't have to tolerate just if they don't get it, they don't get it. You know, your job is just to plant seed. Those who want to know and get it, they'll follow the path and do so. Those who don't, let them be. They can argue, make 20 videos a day, you know, on it. And just, you know, there's nothing you can do to help them. It just is what it is.
Well, I have that conversation, and I told people that those who are interested, I can provide it for them. This and many other conversations. I actually have the conversation, and if Smash is still in the chat, I even had the conversation where Smash chimed in on a conversation that started with Ned or Neb about Coptic not being Egyptian. That's from 2014, September 2014. And Smash did a whole blog article on it. It's on his Rap God WordPress site. And so I started to address what he was saying in there and correcting him and everything. And so we have these conversations. And see, back then, at least on the part of Smash, I will say that it wasn't something that was adversary and hostile, like adversarial, like other people. So, you know, I think that's how Smash did things differently. Like, you know, he would oppose something, but it didn't have to get ugly or nothing like that, you know, and stuff like that. But if people want these conversations, and I say just about everything, I have conversations from 2012 on Facebook, from Facebook. So the one about the whole Coptic thing with Ned or Neb separately from John Smash, I have that from 2014. Those from 2014. The one that you just brought up, Asar, about the quail chick, the W. Matter of fact, let me do this. So people, let me see. Where is it at? Matter of fact, no, we were actually, no. This is what it was with Smash. It started with talking about Mboli. Yep, because I scrolled up. I pulled it up right here. It's debating, talking about Mboli, and the assumption that he was saying, or Mboli was saying, or we were saying that Coptic is not Egyptian. And no matter how many times we kept saying it was, y'all need to see this. Matter of fact, you know what? I know you've been on here for a long time, and I'm definitely gonna get off here in a second. But I'm gonna do a show. I'm gonna share these. I'm gonna show. Like we're gonna have bedtime stories. I'm gonna read. I'm gonna share my screen and read these conversations and read through the conversations. Hold on, let me share this one though. Because you brought up this one. I think I could share this one if I could find it. I just pulled it up. All right, here we go right here. All right, here it is right here. Will it allow me to share? You have it on will allow me to share? Oh yeah, okay. You there? Assad, I'm rolled out.
Hold on, I'm on the phone, so it's different on the phone.
Okay,
to
no,
make it.
I think it will allow me to Oh, you got to add it into the session. Okay. All right, so if y'all could see this, this is from March 2016. So listen, y'all. I want y'all to understand, and I'm going to emphasize dates to y'all. This is from March 2016. That is 6 years ago. 6 years ago. 6 years is enough time to get a bachelor's degree in college, a master's degree. Really. 6 years ago. We talking about stuff like this. So anyway, this is now I'm not gonna read the whole thing because it's a lot of here to read. I'm not gonna read it, but I just want to show you all. This is I'm gonna show you the sisters that Asar was talking about. If I scroll down, keep on scrolling down. It's this sister right here. That's her name. I couldn't think of her name for anything. Michelle Beverly. So look at okay. Let's read her because Asar made a mention about how she came into the conversation. So I'm gonna read it. She says, "Greetings, Netroneb, Katie Hartley L. The only thing I can say now is you have a misunderstanding." Okay, so this is actually part 2, y'all. Just to put y'all on a timeline. This is like the continuation of the conversation on a different thing. You know how people on Facebook, instead of keeping the topic thread nice and neat under a single topic, people will start a whole new topic just to continue the conversation. That's what happened a lot too. So anyway, this is the continuation of. But anyway, she says the only thing I can say now. Can y'all see it? The only thing I can say now is you have a misunderstanding of the distinctions between phones and phonemes and how they work either independent of languages or within a language system. I don't think you really understand what Jean-Claude Mboli said in the other comments, and that's why I tried to explain it a little different and gave the information. Yeah, so this is a continuation. What you are showing here is not information that supports the absence of the phone W in ancient Egyptian, or the phoneme or phone W in ancient Egyptian. What you are showing looks like it goes along with what Jean-Claude Mboli said in his comment. And this is another reason why I don't think you understand it. Are you taking a linguistics course? If not, I suggest that you do take on a study of it and get familiar with the concepts. The phonemic units of B, W, M, and U in the African languages was mentioned. That you show here, she probably meant what? I'll read it as it's typed though. That you show here supports that, but not your proposal of no W. She probably meant what? What you show here supports that. Then it comes back. It's funny, Mboli stated that these comparisons was good. Was he lying? Also, it stated to me, good job. So why would he say that? Here is a message I sent him. Hold on. Yes, you are biased. It's all good. And then Emiket, this is going to get repetitive. I also suggest this discussion move to its appropriate post thread. Yeah, because people were making new posts for the same conversation. And then he says, I posted my work. Separate comment. To prove my case. Separate comment. No W in my findings. And then Emiket, is this the whole research? Here's what he stated. LOL, read it. Tell me what it say. What do these correspondence and comparisons show? And then he quotes, he says, Mboli reconstructed form G43. And for those of you who don't know what G43 is, it is the Quelchik glyph, all right? Is ORO. I did 50 thorough comparisons. Since my work is nothing, here's what a linguist said of my work. Hold on. I posted this to Mboli, Mr. Mboli. Just a small comparison sample of many in which we find.
Someone said to make it bigger if you can. Can you increase the size? All right, go ahead.
Hopefully they can see that. Oh, I see what they mean. They mean make it big like that. There we go. Hopefully they can see that now. Just a small comparison sample of many in which we find W and B correspondence in Egyptian, Middle Egyptian, and then he has these comparisons, all right? This can be reflected as well as in Coptic to Coptic correspondence. Here's a small example. Notes. In Proto-Berber, to cut off B vowel T, the V is for a vowel, to cut off Proto-Berber F vowel L vowel H in Agar, Tagart, Tahargart, etc. to cut. This is constant, just a very small portion. I have over 50 items compared in which some forms show OR, AR, AL, LA, etc., right? Y'all can see that. This is what he stated. And Bowley says, good job, but as stated above, avoid to use West Chadic and Proto-Bantu. Replace them with actual languages. So Mboli is giving him constructive advice on what to do. Neneb takes it as, good job, I'm right. Then he goes on, he is not only a linguist I correspond, he is not only linguist I correspond with either. My teacher, Raketi Amen, has linguistic background as well. You chumps are biased. It's all good. You see how he refers to her as a chump? That was totally uncalled for. And that's reminiscence of the character that people have. And ever since 2018, I just leave folks alone. Let them swim in their own ignorance. Also, me and Asar always disagree. That's not new, but that's linguistics. And I'm trying to get to the point where she picks back up. All right. So, then he doubles down. He stated, good job, Michelle Beverly. Tell me what now? You see the kind of attitude. And then Emika says she already did. Then he says, so according to you and Michelle Beverly, though actual linguists say I do good work, to y'all and others you affiliate with, I'm totally inaccurate and incorrect. So he took what Mboli said, good job, as if he was correct. And Mboli didn't agree with him. And I could provide this whole conversation. Like I said, this is only a portion of the conversation, and it's the later part of the conversation. But let me go back down to where she jumps in. All right. So I don't want y'all to think I'm skipping something. They go back and forth about posting a new post, not keeping it all under one thing. He said, what's repetitive? And Emiket and him going back and forth on trying to keep the post neat. All right, so here's where the sister comes back in. She says, Netaneb, I didn't say your comparisons were bad. Your comparisons were bad. I said what you showed does not support your proposal. I really don't think you understand what everyone else is telling you. It just looks like you're being antagonistic whenever people are trying to help you. How in the world do you think I'm being biased? I'm trying to help you. I have professional training in linguistics, and it's clear to me that you have just started to deal with linguistics because you are making mistakes that I see in beginning students I've graded. So she's a teacher in linguistics. I just hope that you can learn from all the information being given to you. Do I have to tell you good work in order for you to understand what I'm saying? And then I chime in, but I'm gonna keep it with just her and him. Try to skip on down, skip on down, skip on down. But I'll read this whole thing, another time. And then she says, I don't know where or why I'm being called biased or anything about likes. I'm trying to help this brother out because his comment shows me that he has some learning to do. And then she says, Neterneb, I have professional training in linguistics and I tutored students. I'm not being biased and I don't care about likes. I'm telling you that you need to do more studying to understand what you're being told. If that is being biased, then there's nothing more I can help you with. And then Neterneb says, other linguists disagree with you. And he also says, you have not addressed none of my concerns linguistically. And she says, I haven't seen it, Neterneb. Nothing in this group on the comments disagrees with me. What are your concerns? And he says, it does. You say I do not understand information, but yet 4 credible linguists state I do good work. I can post their comments on my comparisons. She says, I agree about the separate post. I had to search. Oh, she's talking about the post. I had to search out all these posts to deal with the same topic. That is daunting. It was good keeping it on one post. I'm trying to skip on down, keep on going where she picks back up. She says, no, you don't understand what you're being told, and this is by our comments. I told students good work all the time, but it doesn't mean they have it right. I encourage them for effort, and I correct them so they are learned. It looks like you are missing that part. And then he says, what errors here? But anyway, I'm not going to read this whole thing to y'all, but I was trying to get to the point where she actually offers some linguistic issues. Oh, so like here, she says, in the comments I read, I don't see anything saying W didn't derive from another realization. This is why I say you just don't understand what phone and phonemes are and how they work. All the comments I read say the W comes out of the nasalized uvular trill phoneme. And this accounts for the W, the M, the B, and other phonemic systems and specific realizations. This explains why the W is a co-articulated consonant, which means it has a primary and secondary place of articulation, which is the labia and the velar. Did you read my first comment to you and understand it? I don't think you do, and this shows it. So I can just advise you to take a real linguistic course to you and you probably meant so, you can grasp these basic concepts and it will help your work. So she's even breaking this down to him about co-articulated consonants and how they represent 2 places of articulation, the labia, which is the lips, and the velar, and so on and so forth. Anyway, that's just enough. Just wanted to and then she says that the KW is voiceless and is realized as an M. Anyway, so you all can check this out. I was trying to see if there's anything.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to my point.
Here you go. Here's where SAR enters. He said, we're here again.
No, but it's people don't understand like how far we go back. So like when you hearing all these hostilities and stuff on the net, it's because there's history there. And and because we beat them up on these points and stuff before, and they're still trying to lick their wounds and trying to it's you know, like Ned or Neb and Reggie and them on this point is kind of like the South in the Civil War, and they're still acting like the South is going to rise, and that, you know, they that the fight was unfair and all this other kind of that, like that's how they are. Like, but the bigger point here is that Sister Beverly, Dr. Beverly here, she was very nice, very kind, spoke to him with respect, showed him where he was wrong, but he could not take the critique. He had to call her out of her name in the conversation and get upset. And you can see, going back all the way to whatever date that is, was that 2014, he has a comprehension issue and problem. No matter what you tell him, he's always right. He can never be wrong. And he doesn't understand the fundamentals, but he consistently jumps out of the airplane with both feet and no parachute. He wants to argue all day with you. And now he got a whole team of emotionals involved in a situation that you know, they don't understand. They don't even know the argument and the history and the texts and discussions that have been had. And so this is why I'm like, I can't deal with them. I can't do this back and forth after so many years. I only talk to the experts, for which I am the expert. There are no other scholars in the world who have done an in-depth analysis on the word Kemet. I know this for a fact because I checked and have been checking for years. You only have people making conversations in passing, 1-2 page analyses, a blog post, not a dissertation level analysis on Kemet.
That was the most elitist thing said all night.
Look,
nobody in the world but Asar Imhotep. Watch. That's what they go. That's what they go use. Only Asar Imhotep can do this work. Nobody else. Watch. I bet
they don't understand how research works because they've never had to write a dissertation. They never had to write a thesis. You only write stuff, you know, on that no one else has written it. That's one of the things that they make you do, is make sure that your PhD dissertation, your master's dissertation, is not one that somebody else has written. So everybody who has done such analysis can make that claim on the narrow subject that in which you're talking about. Now, there's some theses that are written that the overall topic has been addressed, but no one has went in this direction. And then there are some where there is no history in terms of scholarship on a particular subject. So they have to write it in a framework which we call discovery analysis. They're doing the research to discover something. So that's where mine falls in, because there's not an abundance of literature on the etymology, on the meaning of Kemet. I have to present my thesis as a discovery. That's why I can say that no one has ever done it. So after I publish my text, that will be the basis for a serious analysis on the word Kemet. And you'll find all the source material and arguments. And so from that point on, people are going to be making rebuttals and arguments and scholarly critiques and all of that. But that's what happens in an academic setting. And, you know, and we don't count YouTube videos, and Facebook posts. And it is what it is.
Can you share this one? I'm sharing this one.
Hold on. There we go. Wait, hold on. Okay, there we go.
All right. So this is a conversation from 2014. Now I wanna contrast the character and behavior of the likes of Ned and Neb and the difference with Smash. All right. Smash is competitive, and everybody knows that Smash has a background in music, among other things. So I'm not trying to diminish the brother at all, but you know, everybody knows that Smash has a background in music and battling, lyrics, competitive lyrics. You know everything that comes along with hip hop, MCing, and everything like that. So, and you can see that aspect of it in how he expressed himself, even on Facebook and whatnot. And it's different than how some other people approach adversarial, always on 10, and get get sidetracked, and stuff like that. So this is from 2014, and this was in the Amara Squad Scholarship Group. So if y'all want to go see the original, just search for it. But see, so Smash starts off with a little slick talk. He says, the Magi vanguards of Kemet in the building. This is what happens when you run up on the Magi. It's hands on heads, arrow up. And y'all can hear him say that. It's hands on heads, arrow up. You know how Smash be talking, right? So, but what he's sharing is his Rap God WordPress article entitled Bantu or Coptic, the debate synopsis exposing logical fallacies. And so I guess I don't know if he tagged these people. Now that goes back because Ishmael Bey was still in the group. You see Ishmael Bey's name in there. And so he posted, and then here comes Wujau, right? And so what I do, I have a certain style of how I address everybody, and I've been doing this since day one. I always put in double arrow brackets the quote that I'm addressing from the person. So there's nobody get a twist. Nobody can say I'm misquoting something or whatever. I always do that. And so from Smash's article, I just highlight some points that he made in his article, and I address it. So this is the first one I do. In his article, he says, a long discourse after which Osari Motep and Wujau Irdimai eventually submitted and said Coptic is Egyptian. I said, pump the brakes. I said, this is false. I never had any reason to submit to such a thing, as I have never said Coptic was not Egyptian. So right there, what I'm saying is that Smash created a phantom argument, a straw man argument that was never argued in the first place. And he said that I had to submit. So I'm like, no, there's no submitting on this, because I never said Coptic was not Egyptian. And then I said, I can't emphasize more than I already have that we need to use specific terminology when engaging these discussions. Coptic is in the Negro-Egyptian language family. Hence, it is Egyptian in that sense, and I have never said otherwise. And so I break it down. Then I quote another part. And, I'm not going to read all this to y'all, but I just want to show y'all I quote something and then I address it. I said, this is a fallacy of mischaracterization. Straw man. Again, Coptic is related. I never said it wasn't. I have always maintained that it is. And then I do another one. So I'm going to skip that because I want to show y'all how Smash comes back. And so the first thing he does, he laughed. He said, LOL, word. And then I do another one. I do another one. I do another one. I do another one. See, Smash put it in writing. And see, this is what I can appreciate. I appreciate when people put things in writing. Then I can address things, because you can't move the goalposts. I could quote you, and then that's that. It's like a ledger. It's like a financial ledger. If y'all know about the blockchain, it's like the blockchain. Once you type something, in order to correct what you type, you have to correct it as a subsequent action. You can't put a eraser, a magical pencil eraser on what you did. No, you correct it as an addition. That way the error is still there, but the correction comes after. That's how it's done. But anyway, so I address the points.
Hold on. Just a side post. I'm near my space. I'm still in the car for some reason, but there's this little red fox that always comes around here, and it's just outside of my car.
Wait, red fox and not a black fox? Are you sure it's not a Kim fox?
No, it's a Deseret. It's a Cephian fox. But I'm sorry. Continue.
You should take a picture of it. Or you on your phone?
I'm
but
on
anyway,
the phone, so I can't do it yet.
So my point here is that because Smash took the time to write something or type it in this case, then I don't mind taking my time to one, take it serious enough to address something, if I can and stuff like that. And so that's what I did. So I'm addressing different things, and then and then he could come back and say and explain and do whatever. So as y'all can see, I'm pulling out different points from his article and I'm addressing them, and then I'm giving Smash an opportunity to elaborate more or whatever, and that's how we do it. So I don't know what happened here. It looked like it skipped Smash because that's me talking here. And then it looks like, because and another reason why I do this is because I'm not saying Smash does this, but I have definitely seen a lot of people when they're wrong, they erase their comments. And so I usually quote people's comments in my comment because they can't erase mine. And so so these double arrow brackets is I'm quoting something. No. This is from his article. This is not from a comment. So like I said, I don't want to say Smash is a person that does that, but people do that. And I quote it. But this is from his thing. And I say this is the best statement in your whole article. When he said, "I will learn when I read it." I said that's your best statement in your whole article. And then in his article, he says, "I will get it" in Bowley's book. And I comment, I say, another excellent statement. And then he comes back and says, "Thanks, yo." And then we continue.
But that should have been the first step. Like, how are you going to write an article on a blog post about a position for a book that you haven't read in a language that you don't read or speak on a subject in a field for which you do not participate?
Yeah.
That's what we facing. And love my brother Smash, but this is exactly what we're talking about. It's like, from him to Netaneb to Clyde Winters to Mario Beatty. I don't know what this is about having opinions about text they've never read.
And don't forget, I got to put Ngozi's name in there because Ngozi.
Same thing with him.
Ngozi had a lot to say about Mboli and Mboli's book, but never read the book. And I'm gonna share that conversation too.
But hold on. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I just want to make sure Paul's got that. So he says, "I didn't say anything about Mboli in that article." Who are you talking about? The subject for which you're trying to argue was a position of Mboli's. So you didn't even, after we told you a million times to read the text so you can understand what was actually being said, you decide to write an article anyway. The position is Mboli's. It was a linguistic position that not that Coptic was not an Egyptian language. It is a language that was spoken in Egypt, but that it is a separate language from what we call Middle and Old Kingdom Egyptian. There wasn't a continuum. That's Mboli's argument. In the same way that French and English was spoken in England, after France invaded England.
But wait,
but once France got kicked out, English became the language of literature and prestige, and now you get English literature in which there was none prior to writing being introduced in England.
Well, let me clarify this though, because if it, and I don't know, this is what he's saying, but if Smash said I did not say anything about Mboli in that article, then can you share my screen again? Okay, so this is Smash's article from the blog that I was addressing. And if you do a search on Mboli's name, it appears in this article 49 times.
And that's another thing about Smash. He doesn't hear what we say, and then he'll argue about something that we didn't say. But then he forgets what he actually says and will deny that he ever said it.
Well, I'm just saying he look, I gotta highlight it. It's like Mboli and stuff. Now he's doing some quoting and stuff like that and everything. So I just want to clarify that I'll make sure I'm not tripping. That, you know, but the point, one of the things when I said that it was the best part of the thing, he mentions Clyde Winters. He says, here's a brief synopsis of Dr. Clyde Winters examining after a few Mboli's reconstructions. This Asar said did not transpire, and et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, I pull up all these points. And like I said, I was skipping it when I was reading through it. But if you go through here, yeah, this is Clyde Winters stuff here, you know, mentioning Mboli and stuff like that. And that was definitely crazy. That was crazy as all outdoors. And that's the end of his article. So now where it says I will read it or I will get it, and all of that, because Jonathan is quoting, is actually citing Winters' opinions about Mboli, and we already showed that Clyde Winters never read Mboli's work. Actually, Clyde Winters admitted it on the Egypt Search Forum.
Exactly.
He admitted it on the Egypt Search Forum from where this comes from. This right here comes from Egypt Search Forum, where Clyde Winters is trying to make a comment about Mboli's work, but never read it. I'm gonna tell you what Clyde Winters did. All Clyde Winters did was he Googled Mboli, and then you know how on Amazon or Google Books, it'll show you a preview of a person's book, but not the whole book. It may show you 30 pages out of a 600-page book. That's what Clyde Winters did. and he claimed he read it. I mean, he thinks that he could formulate a whole opinion about reading 30 pages out of a 600-page book. That book, and I'm not exaggerating. That book is how many pages is it?
It's like 630 or something like that.
Yeah, it's over 600 pages. I mean, come on, y'all. But anyway, I didn't realize it's so late, y'all.
Yeah, he didn't. You could tell he didn't read the French. I'm like, where? Mboli doesn't even say this on this page. He doesn't even mention this in this whole book. Like, where are you getting this stuff from? Like, Clyde Winters is just the disappointment of Black people in general. There's just no defense for him.
Here's what I quote, because see, I quote so that nobody could say I'm misquoting or taking anything out of context. And if I ever do, me quoting people and showing what I'm quoting allows them to correct me if I'm misunderstanding what they're saying. That's why I do it. I've been doing that for a long time, before all this Facebook stuff. Anyway, so Smash says, Brother Asar, I still have not penned a word against Mboli or his work, but you cannot see that. I'm asking you questions about the work that you seem to be unable to answer. So you say, once you read the book, shaking my head. I don't know if bullheaded is in the African phenotype, but you have somehow missed another opportunity to teach. You have, however, done a wonderful job at promoting the book sales of Jean-Claude and Bowley. I will get it. And so that's what I was quoting when he said, I will get it. And I said, hey, that's one of the best lines. That's one of the best statements in the whole article. You know, so we were having fun with that. But anyway, so I just want to show y'all the difference. The difference between how Smash engages. And see, that's another thing. See, people become, you know, attached to people. And I understand, like, people may like how I present, how, you know, what I do, how I present. People may like Smash, people may like what you do, Asar, and other people. But because a lot of people cross-pollinate, it there's pros and cons to stuff like that. And you know, the old saying, birds of a feather flock together. And we got to be careful of that indirect association where people will come at you just because of how another person is that you may in their mind be associated with, but you don't do those things, or you may not be that way. And you know, that just goes just regular stuff, even in the hood and neighborhoods and stuff. But I'm saying we got to be careful that in scholarship we know to separate that. That's why, you know, you never attach yourself to information and things like that. But anyway, let me stop sharing this. But anyway, but listen, I have a whole lot of conversations. I got a conversation about the whole Nubian stuff. These are good conversations. I got a conversation going back and forth with Ishmael Bey about the word more, and myrrh being the word more in the glyphs and in the Budge's dictionary and stuff like that. I saved that. I got old conversations. I got old conversations where people don't even have the same screen names anymore. You know what I mean? So I keep all of that stuff. These go over years of things. Clyde Winters. What's the other elder's name? I got a back and forth with Clyde Winters on the word hikakasut. And that's what I'm saying. People don't understand.
I mean, I got stuff from, you know, the listserv days. So, you know, this is with Robin Walker and Clyde Winters, Manu Ampim, brother Banachi, Yafura, Dr. Raymond Davis, you know, Paul Manasala, and others. You know, like these conversations go back years. And so, you know, if y'all hear my frustration, is because, you know, 24 years in this particular space, you see patterns. And the most frustrating patterns is when people have big opinions about texts they've never read and subjects they don't study or engaged in. And throughout that time, this is exactly what you would see. You know, all of the online arguments is just full of people who just would, you know, you're suggesting them to read certain works and they won't even read it. Not the introductory works, you know, and the like. And we saw that with Ned or Neb. Like he's trying to argue if he's a linguist, and he hasn't taken any linguistic courses. So even the little bit that he does right now is because he's been forced. He blocks everybody. Once you disagree with him, he blocks you. And then what he does is, you know, changes his name, creates new pages and identities and things, starts over with the information that we gave him, and then act like he's always been on it and he's teaching people. And that's what's frustrating. And he's still getting stuff wrong.
Yeah, I'm gonna share my back and forth with Ned or Neb about the feminine plural. And I'm gonna show how people cherry pick when they want to accept scholars or not, and the consensus and this and that, and the names that people would be name dropping. you know, I'm gonna show that because I can't explain it without showing it. So I'm gonna show the whole conversation. And it's an older conversation where I'm gonna show it to make a point of what not to do. You know, when begging to debate Wujao goes wrong and whatnot and things like that. But anyway, so I appreciate, man, the Mbongi, the open mic. Nobody else came in here, so
yeah, the link was pinned to the top. So
but
it is what it is.
Last night I tried to sneak in an after party to your show, but it ended up nobody really brought up anything. I was asking people if
that's
they
because
had
I
any.
explained everything clearly and concisely. There was no questions afterward. That's just a testament to my pedagogical style. Now,
yeah, I was trying to pull it out of people, but see, everybody wants to kind of the drama stuff with the blackety black conversation, really. That side of it, really. That's what I definitely know. Because if all I gotta do is just create an inflammatory title on the YouTube's thing, I can go live right now, and I guarantee I could draw everybody to my channel depending on the title I make, and then just name drop a few people, and in the first 5 minutes, and then it's on and popping. That's how easy that is. But I hope we could just do better so that we can advance the thing. Because after all these years, how much closer to knowing the genius of the ancient Egyptians themselves are we collectively? We're nowhere. Everybody's just worrying about superficial stuff, trying to make them who they're not. I mean, it's just crazy. And, you know, and I'm in conversation. It's another thing. Well, no, I'll bring it up another time. But yeah, it's late. I have to go.
I mean, I'm not gonna, you know, I'm let them continue to make their videos. You know, like I got in important work to do outside of this because I'm helping the school with their curriculum in terms of Africana studies, doing some trainings throughout the summer, and then I got, you know, finishing this book and then some other things, and of course with the documentary. I just don't have time to go through all of this again for the umpteenth time in these social media spaces. So when it's going to come up, because once the book comes out, then I'm just going in on everybody, and I'm a start a war of these internet streets. So I'm gonna let y'all do y'all thing right now and be happy. So once the book is out there, then I can start, you know, bringing up the conversation. But I won't necessarily be bringing up the conversation with the usual suspects. This will be engaged in, you know, with other Egyptologists and the like, and so people can see what a proper discourse is regarding the particular subject. So yeah, but you know, I appreciate everyone who did come on, and you know, all of you for engaging in the comment section. It's always nice to have everyone. So shout out to Brother Sheffrin and Brother Smash. I saw Unk in there earlier, and everyone else who I mentioned earlier, and those who came in, you know, in and out, you know, throughout the night. You know, peace and love and light to each and every one of you. And if Sister Tamika is still there, you know, we will definitely have our debate sometime soon. And who else is in here? I'm gonna be checking out the images, Brother Aziz, and yeah, I got no more messages. So with that said, you know, again, next week we're going to have a series of interviews. So stay tuned and make sure, you know, that you have subscribed to the channel to get the updates for some of the ones where the dates haven't been finalized just yet. And we will see you next time. Y'all be safe. Peace.